the hell are you doing, Lila? Nathaniel Grayson's voice sliced through the nursery's stillness, his eyes blazing as he towered over Lila Brooks, a black housemaid cradling his infant daughter, Sophie, against her chest. The billionaire's rage echoed off marble walls, condemning her for daring to nurture, not merely serve. Yet Sophie's cries hushed only in Lila's arms, a mystery that binds them in a storm of secrets. Why does this child cling to a stranger? What shadows lurk in the Grayson mansion, threatening to unravel a family's fragile bonds? Will Lila's courage expose a truth darker than the night? Dive into this tale of love, betrayal, and redemption. If Lila's quiet strength moves you, hit subscribe and share where and when you're watching. Your city, your time. What do you predict for this gripping saga? Stay until the end to uncover the truth. The Grayson mansion loomed over Long Island's windswept cliffs, its marble facade gleaming under a moonless sky, a palace of opulence cloaked in an eerie hush. Chandeliers cast golden fractals across polished floors, but the air within was heavy, as if the walls themselves held their breath. In the nursery where shadows danced on silk drapes, Lila Brooks sat cross-legged on a plush wool rug, her dark skin a stark contrast to the ivory opulence around her. Sophie Grayson, barely 6 months old, lay nestled against her chest, tiny fists curled into Lila's worn cotton blouse. The infant's breasts were soft, a fragile rhythm against the storm brewing beyond the door. Lila hummed a low, soulful melody, her mother's old lullaby, born in a Brooklyn tenement where hope was as scarce as heat. Her voice, warm and weathered, wrapped Sophie in a cocoon of calm, silencing the cries that had pierced the night for hours. Lila's eyes, deep as midnight, softened as she traced a finger along the baby's cheek. "You're safe now, little one," she whispered. "I've got you." The door slammed open, shattering the stillness. Nathaniel Grayson stormed in, his tailored suit rumpled, eyes blazing with a fury that could crack stone. "What the hell are you doing, Lila?" His voice was a blade, sharp and unforgiving. "You're the help, not her mother. You clean, you serve. You don't hold my daughter like she's yours." Lila's breath caught, her arms instinctively tightening around Sophie. The baby stirred, a whimper escaping her lips. Lila stood, slow and deliberate, her gaze meeting Nathaniel's without flinching. She was crying, "Mr. Grayson," for hours. "I tried everything. Bottles, rocking, white noise. She only settled when I held her." Nathaniel's jaw clenched, his hands fisted at his sides. He stepped forward, towering over her, and yanked Sophie from her arms with a force that made Lila's heart lurch. The baby's wail erupted, shrill and panicked, her tiny body thrashing against her father's rigid hold. "Shh, Sophie, it's me," Nathaniel murmured, his voice softening but strained, like a man pleading with a storm. "Daddy's here!" But Sophie's cries only grew, her face red, her hands clawing at the air, as if reaching for Lila. Lila's chest ached, her hands trembling at her sides. She stepped forward, voice low but firm. "Please, Mr. Grayson, give her back. She's scared. You're scaring her." Nathaniel froze, his eyes darting to Sophie, then to Lila. The nursery silence was deafening, broken only by the child's desperate sobs. His shoulders sagged, a flicker of defeat crossing his face. He handed Sophie back, his movements reluctant, almost ashamed. The moment Lila's arms enveloped her, Sophie curled into her chest, cries fading to soft hiccups within seconds. Lila sank back to the rug, rocking gently, her lullaby resuming as if it had never stopped. "There you go, sweet girl," she murmured. "I'm right here." Nathaniel stood rooted, his breath uneven, watching the scene unfold. His eyes, once sharp with rage, now held a storm of confusion. Anger warring with something softer, something he couldn't name. The chandelier's light caught the edge of his face, revealing lines etched by grief, not time. He opened his mouth, then closed it, the weight of his outburst hanging heavy in the air. Lila didn't look at him. Her focus remained on Sophie, her hands steady despite the pulse hammering in her throat. She'd heard words like his before, on Brooklyn stoops, in crowded shelters from men and women who saw her as less than human. But Sophie's trust, the way the baby's fingers clung to her, was a shield against the sting. The nursery door creaked, and Mrs. Helen, the gray-haired housekeeper, appeared, her eyes sharp and knowing. "She's quiet now," Helen said, her voice low, almost a warning. "Only with her." She glanced at Nathaniel, then back to Lila, a silent message passing between them. Nathaniel's gaze flickered to Helen, then back to Lila, but he said nothing. He turned and strode out, the door clicking shut behind him. Lila exhaled, her shoulders easing as Sophie's breathing steadied. She brushed a curl from the baby's forehead, her past flickering in her mind. A mother lost to illness, a childhood spent invisible in a world that didn't care. "You're not alone," she whispered to Sophie, though the words felt like a promise to herself. Outside, the wind howled against the mansion's walls, carrying whispers of secrets yet to be uncovered. Lila's eyes drifted to the door, where Nathaniel's shadow had lingered moments ago. Something in his gaze, beneath the anger, had cracked open, like a door left ajar. She didn't trust it, not yet. But Sophie's warmth against her chest was enough, for now, to keep her here, in a house that felt more like a cage than a home. What had Nathaniel buried in his rage? And why did Sophie, a child born to wealth, find peace only in the arms of a woman the world deemed unworthy? The answers lay hidden, waiting to unravel, as the night stretched on, heavy with unspoken truths. Lila's hands moved with mechanical precision, folding linens in the dim glow of the laundry room, but her mind was still in the nursery, tethered to Sophie's soft breaths. The sting of Nathaniel's words lingered. "You're the help, not her mother." But it was the baby's trust, those tiny fingers clutching her blouse, that anchored her. She hummed her mother's lullaby, the notes a faint echo of a Brooklyn tenement, where cold seeped through cracked windows and love was the only warmth. Lila's mother, Esther, had sung it through fevered nights, her voice a lifeline, until illness stole her away, when Lila was just 16. The memory cut deep, but Lila buried it, stacking towels with a steadiness born of survival. Sophie's cries had haunted the night again. Lila had tried everything: pacifiers, a swaying crib, the hum of a white noise machine. But the baby only quieted when nestled against her chest. She'd stayed on the rug until dawn, eyes burning, heart heavy with a truth she couldn't name. Sophie needed her, and that need was both a gift and a chain. Mrs. Helen's shadow fell across the doorway, her face etched with lines that spoke of years spent guarding secrets. "She slept through, didn't she?" Helen's voice was low, almost accusatory. "Only with you." Lila nodded, avoiding the older woman's gaze. "She's fussy otherwise, I don't know why." Helen stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "You're not the first to get too close to that child. Others tried, they didn't last." Her words hung heavy, like damp air before a storm. "Be careful, Lila. This house, it doesn't forgive those who dig too deep." Lila's hands stilled on a folded sheet. "What do you mean?" Helen's lips tightened, as if weighing a truth too heavy to share. "Just watch yourself. Not everything here is what it seems." She turned to leave, then paused. "And don't ask about Claire. Not if you want to stay." The name Claire hit like a stone in still water. Lila's pulse quickened, but she kept her face blank, nodding as Helen disappeared down the hall. Alone, she reached into her apron pocket, fingers brushing a crumpled note she'd found slipped under the nursery door at dawn. "Don't ask about Claire." The words, scrawled in jagged ink, felt like a warning carved into her skin. She tucked it deeper, her resolve hardening. She'd stay for Sophie, but she'd keep her eyes open. The day dragged on, each task a reminder of her place. She polished silver, swept floors, and served coffee to Nathaniel, who sat at the dining table, his eyes fixed on a tablet, his tie askew. He didn't look at her, but his silence was louder than his rage the night before. Lila set the coffee down, her movements deliberate, and caught a flicker of his gaze. Brief, conflicted, then gone. That night, Sophie's cries pierced the quiet again. Lila was there before anyone else, lifting the baby from her crib, rocking her gently. "Shh, sweet girl, I'm here," she whispered, her lullaby weaving through the darkness. The cries faded, Sophie's tiny body melting into her. Lila sank to the rug, exhaustion tugging at her bones, but her heart steadied with purpose. Footsteps approached. Nathaniel stood in the doorway, his silhouette rigid against the hall's amber glow. Why does she do that? His voice was quieter now, frayed with something like defeat. Why only you? Lila met his gaze, unflinching. She feels safe with me, Mr. Grayson. That's all I know. He stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. You're not her mother. No, Lila said, her voice steady but sharp. But I'm what she has. The words landed like a challenge, and Nathaniel's jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. He lingered, watching as Sophie's breaths evened out, her tiny hand curled around Lila's finger. Then he turned and left, the door clicking shut with a finality that echoed in Lila's chest. Morning brought no relief. Lila moved through the kitchen, preparing breakfast trays, when Rosa, a young maid with nervous eyes, sidled up. You're braver than most, Rosa whispered, glancing over her shoulder. Getting close to Sophie like that. The last one who did. She was gone in a week. Lila's stomach twisted. Gone how? Rosa hesitated, then leaned closer. Her name was Maria. She asked too many questions about Claire. Mrs. Grayson. Found something she shouldn't have. The next day her room was empty. They said she quit, but... Rosa's voice dropped. Her things were burned out back. Lila's fingers tightened around a tray. What did she find? Rosa shook her head. I don't know, but it was something big. Something about the company. Be careful, Lila. They're watching you. The air felt thicker now, every creak of the house a warning. Lila carried the tray to the dining room, her mind racing. Nathaniel sat there, his coffee untouched, eyes distant. She set the tray down, her voice low. Mr. Grayson, what happened to the last maid who held Sophie? His head snapped up, eyes narrowing. She left. Why? Lila held his gaze, her heart pounding. Just curious. She turned away, but not before catching the shadow that crossed his face. Guilt, fear, or something darker. As she returned to the kitchen, her hand brushed the note in her pocket. Don't ask about Claire. But Lila wasn't one to obey warnings. Not when Sophie's peace depended on her. Not when the truth was a shadow creeping closer, ready to swallow them all. What had Maria uncovered? And what price would Lila pay for daring to look? Lila's fingers trembled as she tucked the crumpled note deeper into her apron. Its words, don't ask about Claire, burning like a brand against her skin. Sophie's soft coos pulled her back to the nursery, where the baby lay in her crib, eyes fluttering with the promise of sleep. Lila's lullaby resumed, a fragile thread of calm woven through the night, but her mind churned. Rosa's warning about Maria, the maid who vanished after digging into Claire's secrets, clung to her like damp fog. She glanced at the door, half expecting shadows to move. They didn't, but the silence felt alive, watching. Morning broke with a gray chill, the mansion's grandeur muted by a restless hum. Lila moved through her tasks, polishing banisters, brewing coffee, her eyes scanning every corner for answers. Nathaniel's presence at breakfast was a storm cloud, his gaze fixed on his tablet, avoiding her. She set his coffee down, the porcelain clinking softly, and caught a flicker of something in his eyes, regret, perhaps, or fear. Lila, he said abruptly, his voice low, almost hesitant. I need to speak with you, in my office, now. She followed, her pulse quickening, the note in her pocket a silent weight. Nathaniel's office was a fortress of glass and steel, screens glowing with data, a stark contrast to the nursery's softness. He gestured to a chair, but Lila stood, arms crossed, her dark eyes steady. What is it, Mr. Grayson? He rubbed his temples, the lines on his face deeper than the night before. I was wrong, he said, the words heavy like stones dropped into still water. What I said to you, about Sophie, it was cruel. I'm sorry. Lila's breath caught, but she kept her voice even. Sorry doesn't change what you said, but it's a start. He nodded, his gaze dropping to the desk. Sophie needs you, I see that now, and I need your help with something else. He turned a screen toward her, displaying a sleek app interface labeled Single Mother's Haven. This is my project, a digital platform for single mothers, resources, support, anonymity. I started it after Claire left, but my team doesn't get it. They don't know what it's like to be alone, To need help and find none. You do. Lila's eyes narrowed, her past flashing, nights in a Brooklyn shelter, her mother's cough echoing in a crumbling apartment. I'm no tech expert, Mr. Grayson. I don't need tech, he said, leaning forward, his voice earnest. I need truth. You've lived it. Tell me what this app needs. She studied the screen, then him. A place to speak without fear. Anonymous forums. Women like me. We don't trust easily. We need somewhere to be heard, not judged. Nathaniel scribbled a note, his eyes brightening. That's good. That's exactly it. He paused, then softer. You're more than I thought, Lila. Her chest tightened, but she held his gaze. And Claire? What happened to her? Rosa said she found something. Something about your company. His face shuddered, a wall slamming down. Claire left. After Sophie, she wasn't herself. She walked out one night. That's all. His voice cracked, betraying the lie beneath. Lila stepped closer, her voice low. And Maria, the maid who asked about her, did she leave too? Nathaniel's eyes flashed, a mix of anger and guilt. You're pushing too far, Lila. Am I? She shot back. I'm here for Sophie, but I won't stay blind. He stood, towering over her, but his voice softened. Stay for her, please. I'll tell you what I can, when I can. She nodded, not trusting him, but trusting the weight of Sophie's need. As she left, her hand brushed the note in her pocket, its warning now a challenge. That night, Sophie's cries pulled her back to the nursery. Lila lifted her, humming, the baby's warmth a balm against the storm in her heart. Nathaniel appeared, silent, watching from the doorway. He didn't speak, but his presence felt different. Less like a master, more like a man lost. At dawn, Rosa caught Lila in the pantry, her eyes darting nervously. You're stirring things up, she whispered. I heard them talking. Jeffrey Klein, the CFO. He was furious when he saw you with Mr. Grayson. Said you're trouble, that you're digging where you shouldn't. Lila's stomach nodded. What did Claire find, Rosa? Rosa hesitated, then leaned in. Something about money, big money moving where it shouldn't. She was scared, Lila, then she was gone. Be careful, Jeffrey's not just talk. Lila nodded, her resolve hardening. As Rosa slipped away, a new message buzzed on Lila's phone. The number blocked. Check the safe in his office. Code 9274. Her breath hitched. The mansion's walls seemed to close in, each shadow a threat. She glanced at Sophie's crib, the baby's peaceful face a stark contrast to the chaos brewing. Lila wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a keeper of secrets, and the truth was a flame she couldn't ignore. Who was behind the message? And what would Lila find in that safe, buried in the heart of Nathaniel's empire? Lila's heart pounded as she slipped through the shadowed hallway, the anonymous text. Check the safe in his office. Code 9274. Burning in her mind like a lit fuse. Sophie's soft coos from the nursery lingered in her ears, a reminder of why she hadn't run. The baby's trust was a tether, binding her to this house of secrets, even as Rosa's warning about Jeffrey Klein and the vanished maid Maria echoed like a pulse. Lila's fingers brushed the note in her apron, its jagged scrawl. Don't ask about Claire. A silent scream. She couldn't stop now. Not for Sophie. The mansion was a labyrinth of silence at midnight, its grandeur cloaked in darkness. Lila moved swiftly, her sneakers silent on the marble floor, her breath shallow as she reached Nathaniel's office. The door creaked open, revealing a room of glass and steel, screens dormant but humming with latent power. Her eyes locked on the safe, a sleek black box hidden behind a framed abstract painting. She slid the frame aside, her fingers trembling as she punched in the code. 9274. The lock clicked, a sound like a bone snapping. Inside, a stack of documents waited. Ledgers, bank statements, emails with cryptic subject lines. Her pulse raced as she scanned them, her Brooklyn-honed instincts catching phrases like offshore transfers and unreported assets. At the bottom, a single letter, folded tight, inked in red. Lila's breath hitched as she unfolded it. They'll never let me speak. If I'm gone, Protect her. Claire! The words clawed at her, each letter a wound. Claire hadn't just left. She'd been silenced. Footsteps echoed in the hall. Lila shoved the letter into her pocket, slamming the safe shut and swinging the painting back just as Nathaniel appeared, his silhouette sharp against the doorway's glow. Lila? His voice was low, laced with suspicion. What are you doing here? Her heart hammered, but she faced him, chin high. Cleaning. Or is that against the rules now, Mr. Grayson? His eyes narrowed, scanning the room. At midnight? Don't lie to me. She stepped forward, her voice steady despite the storm inside. Then don't lie to me. Claire didn't just leave, did she? She found something about your company, and now she's gone. Nathaniel's face paled, his hands clenching. You're out of line, Lila. Am I? She snapped, pulling the letter from her pocket, holding it like a weapon. This is Claire's. She said, they silenced her. Who's they, Nathaniel? And what does it have to do with Sophie? He stared at the letter, his breath uneven. For a moment he looked broken. Not a billionaire, but a man drowning in grief. You don't understand, he said, voice cracking. Claire was unwell. After Sophie, she spiraled. Depression, paranoia. She found things, transactions, deals, but she didn't understand them. She thought they were threats. She left a note, then disappeared. I found her, too late, by the lake. Gone. Lila's throat tightened, but her eyes didn't waver. And Maria, the maid who asked questions, did she leave too, or did someone make her disappear? Nathaniel flinched, his voice low. Maria quit. I don't know what stories you're hearing, but you're wrong. Then tell me the truth. Lila's voice rose, sharp with desperation. I'm here for Sophie, but I won't stay in a house built on lies. Nathaniel stepped closer, his eyes pleading. I'm trying to protect her. Those deals, they're from years ago. I didn't know the details. I swear, Lila, I'm not the enemy. She held his gaze, the letter trembling in her hand. Then who is? Before he could answer, a shadow moved outside the office. A figure, fleeting but deliberate. Lila's heart lurched. Someone's there, she whispered, shoving the letter back into her pocket. Nathaniel spun, but the hall was empty. His jaw tightened. Stay with Sophie. Don't do this alone. I already am, Lila said, her voice cold. She brushed past him, her mind racing. Back in the nursery, Sophie's cries greeted her, a beacon in the dark. Lila lifted her, humming softly, the baby's warmth easing the chill in her bones. I've got you, she whispered, but her eyes darted to the door. Morning brought a new face. Jeffrey Klein, Grayson Global's CFO, his smile sharp as a blade. He stood in the dining room, eyeing Lila as she served coffee. You're the one keeping Sophie quiet, he said, his tone oily. Impressive for a maid, but you're getting too comfortable, aren't you? Lila met his gaze, unflinching. I do my job, Mr. Klein. His smile widened, predatory. Keep it that way. Curiosity can be dangerous. She turned away, her hands slipping to the letter in her pocket. Claire's words burned. Protect her. Lila's resolve hardened. She'd stay for Sophie, but she'd watch. That night, she taped a small camera to the nursery's bookshelf, its lens hidden in the shadows. The mansion's secrets were closing in, and Lila wasn't just a maid anymore. She was a hunter, chasing a truth that could burn everything down. Who was Jeffrey hiding? And what would Claire's letter cost Lila to uncover? Lila's fingers grazed the hidden camera in the nursery, its tiny lens a silent sentinel against the shadows that seemed to breathe with menace. Claire's letter, tucked in her apron, was a weight heavier than Sophie's sleeping form. Its words, they'll never let me speak. A warning that pulsed in her veins. Jeffrey Klein's predatory smile lingered in her mind, his words a venomous barb. Curiosity can be dangerous. Lila rocked Sophie gently, her lullaby a fragile shield against the storm brewing in her heart. The baby's warmth anchored her, but the mansion's silence was a predator, waiting to pounce. Morning brought no reprieve. Lila moved through her tasks, her eyes scanning every face. Maids who avoided her gaze, footmen who whispered behind cupped hands. Jeffrey's poison had spread. She felt it in the sidelong glances, The hushed rumors that she was too close to Sophie, too bold for a maid. She served Nathaniel's coffee, her hands steady despite the fire in her chest. He looked up, his eyes softer than before, but still guarded. "Lila," he said, voice low, "we need to talk about the app. Your ideas, they're gaining traction." She nodded, her throat tight. "Later. Sophie needs me first." His gaze lingered, a flicker of gratitude mixed with something unspoken. But she turned away, Claire's letter burning against her hip. In the nursery, Sophie's cries were softer today, but her tiny hands clung to Lila's blouse, as if sensing the danger creeping closer. Lila hummed, her mother's melody weaving through the air, but her eyes darted to the camera feed on her phone. Nothing yet. She kissed Sophie's forehead, whispering, "You're my light, little one." But the darkness was closing in. That afternoon, Rosa caught her in the pantry, her voice a hurried whisper. "They're talking about you, Lila. Jeffrey's spreading lies. Says you're after Mr. Grayson's money, using Sophie to get it. He's dangerous. I heard him on the phone, saying you're digging too deep, like Claire did." Lila's stomach knotted, her fingers brushing the letter. "What did Claire know, Rosa? Tell me." Rosa's eyes darted to the door. "Money, dirty money, offshore accounts, fake contracts. Claire found proof, confronted someone. Then she was gone. Jeffrey was there. Lila, he knew." Before Lila could press further, a crash echoed from the nursery. She bolted, heart pounding, to find Sophie's crib untouched, but a stuffed bear lay on the floor, its seam torn. Her phone buzzed. The camera feed showed a figure, cloaked in shadow, slipping out the nursery door. Lila's blood ran cold. She scooped Sophie up, the baby's whimpers fading in her arms. "Shh, I've got you," she murmured, but her eyes were on the door, where the shadow had vanished. That night, Nathaniel found her in the nursery, Sophie asleep against her chest. "You're still here," he said, his voice a mix of relief and strain. "I thought you might leave. After everything." Lila's gaze was steel. "I stay for her, but I need answers, Nathaniel. Who was in here today, and why does Jeffrey Klein want me gone?" He stiffened, his face paling. "Jeffrey? What's he done?" She stood, careful not to wake Sophie, and pulled out Claire's letter. "This," Claire wrote it. "She found something, your company's secrets, and now someone's watching me. Someone was in this room." Nathaniel's eyes widened, scanning the letter. "I didn't know." Claire was frantic, talking about deals, threats. "I thought it was her illness. I tried to protect her, but—" His voice broke. "I failed her, Lila. I won't fail Sophie. Or you." "Then tell me who to trust," she said, her voice low, fierce. "Because I'm not sure it's you." He flinched, but before he could answer, her phone buzzed. A blocked number. She answered, her heart racing. A distorted voice hissed, "Leave the mansion, Lila, or you'll end up like Claire." The line went dead. Nathaniel grabbed her arm, his grip urgent but gentle. "Who was that?" "I don't know," she said, pulling away. "But they know I'm close to the truth." The next morning, Lila caught Jeffrey in the dining room, his eyes glinting as he sipped his coffee. "Trouble sleeping, Lila?" he asked, his voice smooth as oil. "You look tense." She met his gaze, unflinching. "I sleep fine, Mr. Klein, but I'm watching, always." His smile faltered, a crack in his polished facade. "Careful now. This house doesn't take kindly to prying eyes." Lila turned away, her heart pounding, but her resolve ironclad. She checked the camera feed that night, her breath catching as it revealed a fleeting image. A man in a dark coat, face obscured, lingering outside the nursery. The same figure from the day before. She saved the footage, her mind racing. Jeffrey wasn't just a threat. He was a predator, and Sophie was in his sights. As she rocked Sophie, Lila's lullaby trembled, not with fear but with defiance. She'd protect this child no matter the cost. But the mansion's shadows were growing longer, and the truth was a blade, sharp and unforgiving. Who was the man in the dark coat? And how far would Jeffrey go to keep Claire's secrets buried? Lila's phone buzzed in the dead of night, the screen's glow slicing through the nursery's darkness like a blade. Sophie slept against her chest, her tiny breaths a fragile anchor, but the message, come to the Brooklyn warehouse, alone, or Sophie pays, sent ice through Lila's veins. Claire's letter, hidden in her apron, whispered its warning. They'll never let me speak. Jeffrey Klein's predatory grin flashed in her mind, his threat now a noose tightening around her heart. She kissed Sophie's forehead, whispering, I'll keep you safe, and slipped the baby into her crib, her resolve afire against the fear. She moved swiftly, pulling on a dark jacket, tucking a folding knife into her pocket. The mansion's silence was suffocating, each creak a taunt. Nathaniel's office door was ajar, but he wasn't there. Lila hesitated, then sent him a text. Stay with Sophie. Trouble. She slipped out, the night swallowing her. Brooklyn's rain-slicked streets glistened under flickering streetlights, the warehouse a hulking shadow on the waterfront. Lila's sneakers splashed through puddles, her pulse hammering as she approached the rusted door. Inside, the air was thick with mildew and menace, shadows pooling in corners. A single bulb swayed, casting jagged light across a figure tied to a chair. Sophie, her tiny face pale, eyes wide with terror. Jeffrey Klein stood beside her, a gun glinting in his hand, his smile a razor's edge. You're punctual, Lila, he said, voice smooth as venom. Smarter than Claire, but just as foolish. Lila's heart lurched, but her voice was steel. Let her go, Jeffrey. This is between us. He laughed, low and cruel. You think you're a hero? Claire thought so too. She found my accounts. Millions siphoned off Grayson Global. Tried to play whistleblower. I made sure she stayed quiet. His eyes gleamed. You're next, unless you walk away. Lila stepped closer, her knife a cold weight in her pocket. Sophie's just a baby. Let her go and I'll disappear. Jeffrey's smile widened. You don't get it. You're not just a maid anymore. You're a threat. He cocked the gun, aiming at Sophie. Move, and she's done. Lila's mind raced, her eyes locked on Sophie's trembling form. She slid her phone from her sleeve, thumb tapping a preset distress signal to Nathaniel, sent before she'd left. You're wrong about me, she said, voice steady, buying time. I'm nobody. But Sophie? She's everything. You can't scare away love, Jeffrey. Not hers, not mine. He sneered, stepping closer. Love? You're a fool, just like Claire. She thought she could save Nathaniel's empire. Look where it got her. Drowned in a lake, her secrets with her. Lila's chest tightened, but she held his gaze. And you think you'll win? Hiding behind a gun? Threatening a child? You're the fool, Jeffrey. A distant siren wailed, faint but growing louder. Jeffrey's eyes flickered, his grip tightening. What did you do? He snarled. Lila's voice dropped, fierce. What I had to. She lunged not for him, but for Sophie, shielding the baby as the warehouse door burst open. Nathaniel charged in, flanked by two officers, their guns drawn. Drop it, Klein, one shouted. Jeffrey spun, firing wildly. A bullet grazed Lila's arm, searing pain flaring, but she clutched Sophie tighter, diving behind a crate. The baby's cries pierced the chaos, and Lila whispered, I've got you, sweet girl, her lullaby trembling through the gunfire. Nathaniel tackled Jeffrey, wrenching the gun away as the officers swarmed, cuffs snapping around Jeffrey's wrists. Lila rocked Sophie, her blood staining the baby's blanket, but her arms were steady. Shh, you're safe now, she murmured, the cries fading to hiccups as Sophie nestled into her. Nathaniel knelt beside them, his face ashen, hands shaking as he touched Sophie's cheek, then Lila's. You're hurt, he said, voice raw. It's nothing, Lila said, her eyes fierce. She's safe. That's what matters. He shook his head, eyes glistening. You're what matters, Lila. To her, to me. The officers dragged Jeffrey away, his curses echoing in the damp air. Lila stood, Sophie clinging to her, and followed Nathaniel to the waiting ambulance. The rain had stopped, the city's lights flickering like stars through the mist. In the ambulance, Lila held Sophie close, her lullaby a soft defiance against the night's terror. Nathaniel sat beside her, his hand brushing hers, a silent vow. Back at the mansion, dawn broke, casting pale light through the nursery's windows. Lila settled Sophie into her crib, the baby's eyes fluttering shut. Nathaniel stood behind her, his voice low. I didn't know how deep this went. Jeffrey, he destroyed Claire. I won't let him take you. Lila turned, her gaze sharp. Then stop hiding, Nathaniel. For Sophie. For me. He nodded, his eyes raw with a truth he couldn't yet speak. Lila's arm throbbed, but her heart was steady. The mansion's shadows were retreating, but the fight wasn't over. Jeffrey was gone, but his secrets lingered, and Lila knew the truth was a blade still poised to strike. What had Jeffrey left behind? And could Lila and Nathaniel face it together? Lila's arm throbbed beneath the bandage, a dull reminder of the warehouse's chaos. But Sophie's soft weight against her chest dulled the pain. The nursery's quiet was a fragile sanctuary, the baby's breaths a steady rhythm against the storm still raging in Lila's heart. Claire's letter, now tucked in a drawer, whispered its truth. They'll never let me speak. But Jeffrey Klein's arrest had cracked the mansion's silence open. Lila hummed her mother's lullaby, her eyes scanning the room, half expecting shadows to stir. They didn't, but the weight of unseen eyes lingered. Morning brought a frenzy. News vans crowded the mansion's gates, cameras flashing like vultures circling. Nathaniel stood in the dining room, his face haggard, tie undone. They want a statement, he said, voice rough. About Jeffrey, about everything. Lila set a coffee cup before him, her gaze steady. Then tell them the truth. Sophie deserves that. He looked at her, eyes raw with something deeper than gratitude. You deserve it too, Lila. After what you did, I owe you everything. She shook her head, her voice low. I did it for her, but I need to know you're with me, Nathaniel. No more secrets. He nodded, a promise unspoken but heavy. Lila returned to the nursery where Sophie babbled, clutching a crayon, her tiny fingers smudging a drawing. Lila knelt, smiling. What's this, sweet girl? Sophie giggled, holding up a scrawl of colors, a stick figure with dark curls labeled Mama Lila. Lila's breath caught, tears stinging as she hugged the baby close. The word Mama, a wound and a gift. The press conference was set for noon, a stark room in Grayson Global's headquarters buzzing with reporters. Lila stood at Nathaniel's side, her navy dress simple but defiant, her bandaged arm a silent badge of courage. Nathaniel faced the cameras, his voice steady but laced with fire. Jeffrey Klein betrayed this company and my family. He siphoned millions through offshore accounts, hid his crimes behind lies, but he didn't act alone. We're launching a full investigation to root out every shadow in Grayson Global. A reporter thrust a microphone forward. And Ms. Brooks? What's her role in this? Nathaniel's eyes met Lila's, unwavering. Lila Brooks saved my daughter's life. She uncovered the truth when I couldn't. She's not just a hero. She's my advisor, my partner in rebuilding this company. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, some skeptical, others awed. A board member, his face pinched, leaned into a microphone. This is irregular, Nathaniel. A maid-turned advisor? The optics. Lila stepped forward, her voice cutting through like a blade. I was a maid. I'm still black, still from Brooklyn's shadows. But I know what it's like to be invisible, to fight for scraps of hope. That's why I'm here, to make sure no one else is silenced, like Claire was. The room stilled, her words a thunderclap. Nathaniel's hand brushed hers, a fleeting anchor. Reporters scribbled furiously, but Lila's eyes were on Sophie, safe with Mrs. Helen backstage, clutching her drawing. Back at the mansion, the air was thick with fallout. Board members whispered of instability, their emails sharp with accusations that Lila was a disruptor. Nathaniel shut them down, his voice iron. She stays, or I walk. Lila overheard, her chest tightening. She wasn't here for power, but for Sophie, and for the truth Claire died for. That evening, Lila found Sophie in the nursery, her tiny hands smudging more colors onto paper. Lila sat beside her, her voice soft. You're a little artist, aren't you? Sophie beamed, holding up her drawing. Another stick figure, this time with Nathaniel beside Mama Lila. Lila's heart clenched, tears spilling as she hugged the baby. You're my world, she whispered, But the board's whispers echoed in her mind. They'd never accept her. Nathaniel appeared, his silhouette softer now, less a billionaire than a father. "She loves you," he said, voice thick. "More than I thought possible." Lila looked up, her eyes fierce. "She's why I stayed, Nathaniel. Through Jeffrey, through the lies. But they're still out there, aren't they? People like him." He knelt beside her, his hand hovering near hers. "Yes, but we'll face them together. I was wrong, Lila. About you, about everything. You didn't just save Sophie, you saved me." She held his gaze, the weight of his words sinking in. "Don't thank me yet. This isn't over." He nodded, his eyes glistening. "I know, but you're not alone anymore." Lila looked at Sophie's drawing, Mama Lila scrawled in childish crayon. She wasn't just a maid, not anymore. She was a shield, a voice, a mother in all but name. The mansion's shadows still loomed, but Lila's resolve was brighter, fiercer. She'd fight for Sophie, for Claire's truth, for the women like her who'd been silenced too long. What would the board do next? And how would Lila's new role reshape the shadows still clinging to their lives? Lila's fingers traced the edge of Sophie's crayon drawing. Mama Lila scrawled in wobbly letters, its colors a beacon in the quiet nursery. The weight of the press conference lingered, her voice echoing before a sea of cameras, Nathaniel's hand brushing hers, the board's whispers branding her a disruptor. But Sophie's trust, her tiny hand clutching Lila's, was a fire that burned brighter than their scorn. Lila hummed her mother's lullaby, the notes softer now, less a shield and more a promise. The mansion's shadows had retreated, but their chill still clung to her skin, a reminder of truths unearthed and battles yet to come. Morning spilled golden light through the nursery's windows, casting halos around Sophie's crib. Lila sat in the rocking chair, her bandaged arm a faint ache, watching the baby sleep, her chubby fist tucked under her cheek. Nathaniel's words, "You saved me," echoed in her chest, stirring a hope she'd long buried. She'd fought for Sophie, for Claire's truth, but could she trust this fragile warmth? Downstairs, the dining room hummed with new life. Sophie's drawings were taped to the fridge, a splash of color against a sterile steel. Nathaniel stood at the counter, attempting pancakes, his sleeves rolled, flour dusting his hands. "You're staring," he said, catching Lila's eye, a half smile breaking through his usual reserve. "You're burning them," Lila replied, her voice teasing but soft. She slid beside him, taking the spatula. "Move over before you set off the alarms." Sophie giggled from her high chair, waving a sippy cup. "Daddy funny," she chirped, her curls bouncing. Lila's heart swelled, the word mama from the drawing still a tender wound. She flipped a pancake, her eyes meeting Nathaniel's. "She's happy," she said quietly. "That's new." He nodded, his gaze steady. "Because of you." Lila looked away, her throat tight. "Don't say that like it's simple. This house, it's still a battlefield." "Not anymore," he said, stepping closer. "You changed it, Lila. You changed us." Before she could respond, Mrs. Helen appeared, holding a small envelope, her eyes softer than usual. "Found this in the attic, tucked in an old book. It's for you." Lila took it, her pulse quickening. The handwriting, her mother's, felt like a ghost's touch. She opened it, her breath catching. "You don't need to be perfect, Lila. Just be strong. Love always, Esther." Tears stung, memories of Brooklyn's cold nights flooding back, her mother's lullaby, her fierce love despite a world that offered none. Lila clutched the letter, her voice trembling. "She always knew I'd need this." Nathaniel's hand rested on her shoulder, warm and sure. "She'd be proud. I am." That afternoon, Lila stood before a modest storefront in East Harlem, the sign above reading Warm Floor Foundation. It was hers, a haven for women like her, who'd slept on floors to keep others warm, who'd been told they were nothing. Inside, 2 desks, a worn couch, and a dream born from her own scars. She met her first client, a single mother named Tanya, her eyes hollow but hopeful. "I'm not here to fix you," Lila said, her voice steady. "I'm here to remind you you're not broken." Tanya's tears fell, and Lila held her hand, the echo of her mother's strength guiding her. Word spread, and by week's end, Lila had helped 5 women find jobs, childcare, a chance to breathe. Nathaniel offered a grant, but she shook her head. "This is mine," she said, her eyes fierce. "I need to build it myself." He smiled, a rare warmth. "I know, but I'm here, Lila, always." That evening, the mansion glowed with a new rhythm. Sophie led a clumsy dance in the living room, twirling to a scratchy jazz record, her laughter a melody. Lila joined her, spinning the girl until they collapsed in giggles. Nathaniel watched, his eyes misty, no longer the billionaire who'd once shouted her down, but a father, a man learning to love. "You're good at this," he said, his voice thick, "at being her everything." Lila looked at Sophie, then at him, her heart unsteady. "I'm scared, Nathaniel. Love like this, it's fragile. I've lost too much to believe it lasts." He stepped closer, his hand finding hers. "Then let's build it together. Not perfect, but real." She nodded, her fingers tightening around his. The letter from her mother, Sophie's drawing, the foundation. They were threads weaving a life she'd never dared dream. Lila wasn't just surviving anymore. She was beginning. Outside, spring whispered through the pines, the mansion's frost melting into memory. Lila tucked Sophie into bed, kissing her forehead. "Sleep tight, sweet girl," she whispered, the lullaby soft as moonlight. Nathaniel waited in the hall, his eyes unguarded. "You're home, Lila," he said, voice low. "With us." She smiled, tears brimming. "I'm starting to believe it." In that quiet, with Sophie's breaths and Nathaniel's warmth, Lila felt the shadows lift. The truth had cost her blood, but it had given her a family. What would this new beginning hold? And could Lila's heart, forged in struggle, finally find peace? Lila's journey, from a maid silenced by rage to a beacon of truth, shows that love can shatter even the darkest curses. Sophie's trust and Nathaniel's redemption remind us that home is built not on wealth, but on heart. What did Lila's courage stir in you? Did her fight for Sophie move you to tears? Or did the mansion's secrets keep you on edge? Share your thoughts below. Tell us what you felt, what you predicted, and where you're listening from. Thank you for joining us in this tale of shadows and salvation. Your support lights our way. Until we meet again, keep seeking the truth that sets you free. Stay tuned for more stories that grip the soul. "You don't touch my son. Ever." Daniel Whitaker's voice slices through the quiet of his Chicago estate's living room, sharp as a blade, his eyes blazing with accusation. Amara Johnson freezes, her arms cradling 9-year-old Lucas, whose small hands clutch her shirt. The boy, usually a storm of restless energy, sits still, his face soft, almost smiling, as Amara's low hum of an old folk song lingers in the air. Her heart slams against her ribs, a caged bird desperate to escape. She opens her mouth, but Daniel's hand shoots up, silencing her before a word escapes. "Don't," he snaps, stepping closer, his polished shoes clicking on the hardwood. "You're the maid. You clean. You don't play mother to my boy." His words sting, each one a jab at her place, her skin, her existence in his world. Amara's jaw tightens, teeth grinding as she fights the urge to flinch. Lucas, sensing the shift, whimpers softly, his fingers digging into her arm. She wants to soothe him, to whisper that it's okay. But Daniel's glare pins her in place, a predator sizing up prey. "I was just," she starts, her voice steady but low, trying to explain that Lucas had been spiraling, his autistic meltdown tearing through him until her song calmed the chaos. Daniel cuts her off again, his face a mask of fury. "I said don't. You think you know him? You think you belong here?" His voice rises, each syllable dripping with disdain, as if her care for Lucas is a crime. Amara's chest burns, but she holds his gaze, her dark eyes unyielding despite the tremor in her hands. Lucas shifts in her arms, his small body tensing. "Amara," he mumbles, his voice a rare clarity that pierces the room. Daniel's head snaps toward his son, shock flickering across his face, but it's gone in an instant, replaced by a scowl. "Get out," he orders Amara, pointing to the door. "Pack your things. You're done." The command lands like a punch, and Amara's breath catches, her throat tightening as if squeezed by an invisible hand. She gently sets Lucas down, her hands steady despite the storm inside her. The boy clings to her, his eyes wide with confusion, but she forces a calm smile, brushing his cheek. "I'm not his mother," she says, her voice low, deliberate, locking eyes with Daniel. "But he needed someone, and you weren't here." The words cut, not with malice, but with truth, and Daniel's face twitches, a crack in his armor. Amara stands, her spine straight, refusing to shrink under his stare. She walks toward the door, each step measured, her heart pounding like a drum. Lucas lets out a soft cry, and Daniel's hand hesitates midair, as if torn between reaching for his son or stopping her. The front door looms ahead, cold and final. Amara's fingers grip her worn jacket, the fabric rough against her skin. She doesn't look back, but she feels Daniel's eyes boring into her, a mix of anger and something unspoken. Doubt, perhaps. As she steps into the hallway, the echo of Lucas's whimper follows her, a sound that claws at her resolve. She pauses, just for a moment, her fist clenching at her side. This isn't over, she thinks, but she says nothing, letting the weight of her silence speak louder than words. The door clicks shut behind her, and the estate falls quiet, save for the faint sound of Lucas's distress. Daniel stands frozen, his fists balled, the air heavy with the injustice he's just unleashed. Somewhere in the shadows of the room, a small, overlooked book, a gift from Amara to Lucas, rests on the coffee table, its pages worn from use, a silent testament to her care. Amara Johnson's footsteps echo in the cavernous hallway of the Whitaker estate, each one a deliberate strike against the polished marble. Her jaw clenches so tight her teeth ache, a dam holding back the flood of hurt and fury. Daniel's words, "You're the maid! You clean!" slice through her mind, sharp as broken glass, but she refuses to let them break her. Her hands grip the straps of her worn canvas bag, fingers digging into the rough fabric as if anchoring her to the ground. She won't crumble. Not here. Not in this house where her worth was just trampled. Lucas's soft cry still rings in her ears, a jagged wound she can't soothe. She pauses at the grand oak door, her breath hitching, and glances back toward the living room. The boy's small frame huddles on the couch, his hands twisting in distress, his eyes searching for her. Amara's chest tightens, her heart a fist pounding against her ribs. She wants to run to him, to kneel and hum that folk song again, the one that stilled his storm. But Daniel stands there, a towering shadow, his face a storm of its own. Anger, confusion, and something else she can't name. "Amara," Lucas whimpers, his voice cutting through the silence like a plea. Daniel's head snaps toward his son, but he doesn't move, doesn't soften. Amara's lips part, instinct urging her to respond, but she bites down hard, her tongue tasting the metallic tang of restraint. She won't beg. She won't plead for a man who sees her as less than human to understand her heart. Instead, she straightens, her spine a steel rod, and meets Daniel's gaze one last time. "I didn't touch your son to steal him," she says, her voice low, steady, each word a measured strike. "I held him because he was scared, because he needed someone to see him. You might not see me, Mr. Whitaker, but Lucas does." Her words land like a thrown knife, precise and piercing. Daniel's eyes flicker, a muscle in his jaw twitching, but he doesn't speak. His silence is louder than his earlier shouts, a confession of doubt he won't yet voice. Amara turns, her movements deliberate, refusing to rush or cower. The door handle is cold under her fingers, a stark contrast to the heat rising in her chest. She pushes it open, the Chicago evening air hitting her like a slap, sharp and unforgiving. The estate looms behind her, its wealth a mocking backdrop to her exit. She steps out, bag slung over her shoulder, and lets the door close with a soft thud that feels final, like the end of a chapter she never meant to write. Outside, the driveway stretches endlessly, lined with manicured hedges that seem to whisper judgment. Amara's boots crunch against the gravel, each step a declaration of her refusal to break. Her eyes burn, but she blinks hard, forcing the tears back. She won't cry, Not for Daniel's cruelty, not for the injustice of being cast out for caring. Lucas's face flashes in her mind, his rare smile when she sang, his small hand in hers. That memory is hers, and no one, not even a billionaire, can take it away. She reaches the gate, where Thomas, the old butler, waits, his weathered face creased with concern. "Amara," he says, voice low, "you didn't deserve that." She offers a faint nod, her lips pressed tight. "I know," she replies, her voice barely above a whisper, but heavy with conviction. "But Lucas didn't deserve to lose someone who sees him. Tell him I'll be okay." Thomas's eyes soften, but she doesn't linger, stepping past him into the street, her silhouette swallowed by the city's dusk. Back in the house, Daniel stands rooted, Lucas's whimpers growing louder, a sound that claws at his resolve. He glances at the coffee table where Amara's sensory book lies, its bright cover a quiet rebuke. His fingers twitch, as if to reach for it, but he stops, his chest tight with something he can't name. Guilt, perhaps, or the first crack in his certainty. The silence of the estate presses in, heavy with the weight of what he's done, and the echo of Amara's words lingers. "You might not see me, but Lucas does." Daniel Whitaker stands alone in the dim living room, his fists still clenched, the echo of the slammed door ringing in his ears like a gunshot. Lucas's whimpers have softened to a low, keening hum, the kind that slices through Daniel's chest sharper than any blade. The boy sits curled on the couch, rocking slightly, his small hands twisting the hem of his shirt. Daniel's throat tightens, his jaw grinding as he fights the urge to move, to fix this, to erase the last 10 minutes. He's a man who commands boardrooms, who bends markets to his will. But here, in his own home, he's powerless against his son's distress. He steps toward Lucas, his polished shoes scuffing the hardwood, and kneels, voice low. "Hey, buddy, I'm here." Lucas doesn't look up, his eyes fixed on some invisible point, his rocking faster now, a silent rebellion against his father's presence. Daniel's hand hovers, wanting to touch, to comfort, but it falls back to his side, heavy with doubt. He's seen Lucas like this before, after his wife Claire died, when the world became too loud, too sharp for his son's fragile senses. But tonight, it's different. Tonight, Lucas isn't just lost in his autism. He's grieving something, someone Daniel sent away. His gaze drifts to the coffee table, where a bright sensory book lies, its cover worn from Lucas's small fingers. Daniel picks it up, and the weight of it is heavier than it should be. He flips it open, and a small handwritten note slips out, fluttering to the floor like a confession. His heart stutters as he retrieves it, the paper soft and creased. In Amara's neat script, it reads, "For Lucas to find light on hard days. Amara." The words hit like a fist, each one a rebuke to his rage, his assumptions. His fingers tighten around the note, crumpling the edges, as a hot flush of shame creeps up his neck. He looks at Lucas, who's still rocking, still humming, and the truth sinks in like a stone. Amara wasn't stealing his son. She was saving him. Daniel's mind replays her final words. "You might not see me, but Lucas does." And they burn now, not with accusation, but with clarity. He'd seen a black maid, a hired hand, and assumed trespass. But Lucas saw safety, a tether in his chaotic world. Daniel's chest aches, his breath shallow, as he realizes he's ripped that tether away. He stands, pacing the room, the book still in his grip. His eyes catch on Lucas's backpack, slung carelessly against the wall. He crosses to it, driven by an instinct he can't name, and unzips it. Inside, among crayons and crumpled worksheets, is a folded drawing. Daniel pulls it out, his hands unsteady. It's Lucas's work, a rare glimpse into his son's mind. A stick figure with dark skin and a wide smile, holding hands with a smaller figure labeled me. Above the woman's head in shaky letters is Amara. Daniel's knees weaken, and he sinks to the floor, the drawing trembling in his hands. Lucas doesn't draw people. Not Claire, not him, but Amara. She's there, vivid and real, in his son's heart. The shame twists deeper, a knife in his gut. He'd called her a threat, but this book, this drawing, is proof of her care, her impact. Daniel's fingers trace the note's words, and his mind flashes to something else. A torn letter he'd glimpsed in Amara's bag as she packed. It was old, its edges frayed, with the name Malik scrawled in angry red ink and a phrase that chilled him. You can't hide forever. He hadn't thought much of it then, too consumed by his own fury, but now it gnaws at him, a shadow of something darker. Who is Malik? Why was Amara hiding? The questions coil in his mind, planting a seed of mystery he can't shake. Daniel looks back at Lucas, whose rocking has slowed, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. I'm sorry, buddy, he whispers, his voice cracking, but Lucas doesn't respond. The room feels smaller now, the air thick with Daniel's regret. He clutches the book and drawing, his knuckles white, knowing he's made a mistake he can't undo with power or money. Amara's absence is a wound, and Lucas feels it most. Daniel's resolve hardens. He needs to find her, to understand what he's missed. The sensory book rests on his lap, its bright cover a beacon in the dim light, urging him toward a truth he's not yet ready to face. You think you can erase what you did with an apology? Amara Johnson's voice cuts like a whip, her arms crossed tight across her chest, her eyes blazing as she faces Daniel Whitaker in the cramped office of a South Chicago community center. The air crackles with tension, her words a direct challenge to the billionaire standing before her. His tailored coat out of place among the worn chairs and faded posters. Daniel's jaw clenches, his fingers twitching at his sides. The sensory book, Amara's gift to Lucas, clutched in his hand like a lifeline. He'd driven through the city's maze of neon-lit streets to find her, driven by the weight of his son's silence and the crumpled note that burned a hole in his conscience. For Lucas to find light on hard days, Amara. I was wrong, Daniel says, his voice low, raw, each syllable scraped from a place he rarely touches. I saw you with Lucas and assumed the worst. I'm here to fix it. Amara's lips press into a thin line, her teeth grinding as she fights the urge to turn away. Her heart pounds, a drumbeat of hurt and defiance. She spent years building walls against men like him, men who see her skin, her job, and assume she's nothing more than a shadow in their world. But Lucas's face, his rare smile, flashes in her mind, and she stays rooted, her gaze unyielding. Fix it? She snaps, stepping closer, her boots scuffing the linoleum floor. You didn't just fire me, Mr. Whitaker. You humiliated me. You looked at me like I was a thief stealing your son. Her voice trembles, not with weakness, but with the fury of being unseen. Daniel flinches, his shoulders stiffening, but he doesn't interrupt, doesn't dare. He knows she's right, and the shame twists in his gut like a blade. The drawing Lucas made, Amara's stick figure holding his son's hand, haunts him, a silent accusation of his blindness. I didn't know, he says, his voice cracking, holding up the sensory book. The way Lucas looks at you. I didn't see it then, but I see it now. Amara's eyes flicker to the book, her chest tightening. She remembers buying it, spending half her paycheck to give Lucas something to anchor him when the world overwhelmed him. She remembers his small fingers tracing the textured pages, his soft hums matching hers. Her hands ball into fists, nails biting into her palms as she fights the pull to forgive too easily. You see it now because Lucas is suffering, she says, her words sharp, each one a deliberate strike. You didn't care when I was trying to help him. You cared about your control, your rules. Daniel's face pales, his knuckles whitening around the book. He steps forward, his voice urgent. He's not eating, Amara. He's not talking. He's shutting down. And it's my fault. I need you to come back. For him. The plea hangs between them, raw and heavy, but Amara's gaze doesn't soften. She turns, pacing the small office, her boots clicking with purpose. The walls feel closer, the air thicker, as memories of her own pain. Her brother Malik's betrayal, the threats that forced her to run, claw at her resolve. She stops, facing Daniel again, her eyes fierce. I'm not a tool you call back when you break something, she says. I'm a person, and I don't trust you to see that. Daniel's breath catches, his chest heaving as if her words have knocked the air from him. He wants to argue, to promise, but her gaze pins him, demanding more than words. He sets the book on the desk between them, a gesture of surrender. "I don't know how to do this," he admits, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been alone with him since Claire died. I thought I was protecting him, but I'm failing him. You're not." Amara's fingers twitch, itching to pick up the book, to hold on to the piece of herself she gave to Lucas. But she doesn't move. She can't. Not yet. Outside, the hum of the community center buzzes. Children's laughter, the clatter of chairs. Amara's life here, helping kids like Lucas, is her anchor, her proof she's more than what Daniel saw. But Lucas's face, his whimper when she left, tugs at her heart, a rope pulling her back. "I'll think about it," she says finally, her voice firm but softer, a crack in her armor. "But not for you, for Lucas." Daniel nods, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. Gratitude, maybe, or the weight of his own failures. As he turns to leave, Amara's gaze falls on the book, its bright cover a beacon in the dim office. Her fingers brush its edge, and a memory surfaces. The torn letter in her bag, Malik's red ink threat. "You can't hide forever." Her heart skips, a cold shiver running down her spine. She doesn't know Daniel saw it, doesn't know it's already planted a seed in his mind. The door clicks shut behind him, and Amara stands alone, the book in her hands, a silent promise to Lucas, and a warning of a past that's catching up. "Sing it again, Miss Amara." A small boy's voice pierces the hum of the South Chicago Community Center, his hands flapping with excitement. Amara Johnson kneels beside him, her smile warm but strained, her fingers gripping a worn guitar as she strums a gentle chord. The room buzzes with energy, kids giggling, chairs scraping, a whiteboard scrawled with song lyrics in her neat handwriting. Her heart thumps, heavy with the echo of Daniel Whitaker's plea from hours ago. "I need you to come back, for him." She pushes it down, focusing on the children, her anchor in a world that's just tried to break her again. Her boots scuff the linoleum as she moves to another child, a girl with pigtails clutching a sensory ball Amara gave her. "You got this, Tiana," she says, her voice soft but firm, guiding the girl's small hands to squeeze the ball in rhythm with the music. Amara's chest tightens, her jaw clenching as Lucas's face flashes in her mind. His rare smile when she sang to him, his small hand in hers. She shakes it off, her fingers strumming harder, the notes a shield against the pain of being cast out by Daniel, his words still burning. "You're the maid. You clean." The center is her sanctuary, a cramped haven of chipped paint and secondhand instruments where she teaches autistic kids to find calm in music. Her dark eyes scan the room, catching the flicker of trust in each child's gaze. She's no stranger to being unseen. Years of cleaning houses, fading into the background, her past a shadow she's outrun. But here, she's more. Here, she's the woman who knows how to soothe a meltdown with a song, who learned to navigate chaos caring for her childhood friend, Jamal, who was autistic like Lucas. Her hands tremble slightly, the guitar strings biting into her fingertips, a reminder of the strength she's fought to keep. "Amara, you okay?" Carla, a fellow volunteer, leans in, her voice low, her brow creased with concern. Amara's lips press tight, her teeth grinding as she forces a nod. "Just a rough day," she says, her words clipped, dodging the truth. Carla's eyes narrow, sensing the weight Amara carries. "Heard you got fired from that fancy estate. What happened?" Amara's fingers falter on the strings, a sour note ringing out. She doesn't want to relive Daniel's accusations, the way his voice cut her down to her skin, her job, her place. But Carla's gaze is steady, and Amara's resolve softens. "I tried to help his kid," she says, her voice low, each word measured. "He saw a maid overstepping, not a person." Her chest burns, the injustice a hot coal in her throat. Carla shakes her head, muttering, "Rich folks." Amara's lips twitch, a ghost of a smile, but her heart isn't in it. She turns back to the kids, leading them through a clapping game, her hands steady despite the storm inside. She's always been good at this, hiding her pain, pouring it into others' healing. It's why she stayed in caregiving, even after dropping out of her child psychology program, chased away by her brother Malik's threats and the debts he dragged her into. A memory surfaces. Jamal, her old friend, laughing as she sang to him, his hands flapping like the boys today. She'd studied psychology for him, to understand his world, but Malik's shadow, his gambling, his violence, stole that dream. Amara's fingers tighten on the guitar, her knuckles whitening. She won't let that past define her here. These kids see her, need her, just like Lucas did. Her throat tightens at the thought of him, alone now, rocking in silence without her song. Carla steps closer, lowering her voice. You were studying to be a shrink, right? Before whatever happened. Amara's breath catches, her eyes flickering to Carla's. Yeah, she says, her voice barely audible. Life got in the way. Carla nods, not pushing, but her gaze lingers, seeing more than Amara wants to share. You're good with these kids, Carla says. Better than most. Whatever happened at that house, it's their loss. Amara's chest swells, her fingers pausing on the strings. She wants to believe it, but Lucas's whimper as she left the estate claws at her, a wound that won't close. She leads the kids through one last song, her voice steady, a beacon in their chaos. As they clap and sway, she feels the weight of her choice, to stay strong, to keep showing up, even when the world tries to erase her. The session ends and the kids scatter, their laughter echoing. Amara sets the guitar down, her hands shaking slightly, her heart heavy with the pull of Lucas and the sting of Daniel's rejection. She's not broken, not yet, but the cracks are there, and she feels them widening. As she gathers her things, her fingers brush a small notebook in her bag, one she used to jot down song ideas for Lucas. She flips it open, and a loose page slips out, a sketch she'd made of Lucas smiling, his eyes bright. Her breath hitches, her fingers tracing the lines. She's still here, still fighting, but the question lingers. Can she go back to a place that didn't see her? The notebook stays open in her hands, a fragile bridge to a boy who needs her, and a man who might yet learn to see. You think one sorry undoes what you broke? Amara Johnson's voice lashes out, sharp and unyielding, as she stands in the community center's cramped office, her arms crossed, her eyes boring into Daniel Whitaker's. Her heart hammers, a relentless drumbeat of defiance, her fingers digging into her biceps to keep from shaking. Daniel stands across from her, his tailored coat crumpled, the sensory book still clutched in his hand like a guilty verdict. Behind him, Lucas huddles in the doorway, his small frame rocking slightly, his eyes locked on Amara with a desperate flicker of recognition. The air crackles, thick with the weight of Daniel's earlier betrayal. His words, "You're the maid. You clean," still searing her mind like a brand. I broke something, Daniel says, his voice raw, each word scraped from a place he's kept buried since his wife's death. I know that now. Lucas needs you, Amara. I need you to come back. His plea is a blade, cutting through the silence, but Amara's jaw tightens, her teeth grinding as she fights the urge to turn away. Lucas's soft hum, a sound she knows too well, pulls at her heart, but she won't bend. Not yet. Not for a man who saw her as less than human. Need me, she snaps, stepping forward, her boots striking the linoleum with purpose. You needed me gone when you thought I was a threat. You didn't see me, Daniel. You saw a black maid stepping out of line. Her words are daggers, each one aimed at his pride, his privilege. Daniel's face twitches, a muscle in his cheek jumping, but he doesn't interrupt, doesn't dare. His hands clench around the book, knuckles white as shame burns in his chest. He knows she's right. His rage, his assumptions, were a wall he built to keep Lucas safe, but they shut out the one person who reached his son. Lucas shifts, his hum growing louder, and Amara's gaze flicks to him. Her heart twists, her breath catching, as she sees the boy's fingers twisting the hem of his shirt, his eyes pleading. She kneels, her voice softening but firm. Hey, Lucas, I'm right here, she says, her hand hovering near his, not touching, respecting his space. His rocking slows, his eyes meeting hers, and for a moment the room feels smaller, the world reduced to just them. Daniel watches, his throat tightening, a pang of envy mixing with awe. He's never calmed Lucas like that, never known how. I was wrong, Daniel says, stepping closer, his voice low, urgent. I saw you with him and panicked. I thought I was protecting him, but I hurt him. I hurt you. Amara stands, her eyes narrowing, searching his face for lies. She sees none, but trust is a fragile thing, and hers is cracked. Words are cheap, she says, her voice steady, cutting. You want me back? Prove I'm more than a maid to you. Prove Lucas matters more than your ego. Daniel nods, his shoulders sagging, as if her challenge has stripped him bare. I'll prove it, he says, his voice cracking with resolve. Come back. For Lucas. For as long as you're willing. Amara's chest tightens, her nails biting into her palms. She wants to say no, to walk away from the man who humiliated her, but Lucas's soft hum anchors her. She glances at him, his small hand reaching out, not quite touching her, and her resolve wavers. For Lucas, she says finally, her voice firm but softer, a crack in her armor. But on my terms, I'm his caregiver, not your servant. No more yelling, no more assuming. You treat me like I matter, or I'm gone for good. Daniel nods, his eyes heavy with something unspoken. Gratitude, maybe, or the weight of his own failures. Agreed, he says, his voice barely above a whisper. Amara exhales, her shoulders loosening, but the tension lingers, a taut wire between them. She turns to gather her things, her movements deliberate, her heart still racing. As she reaches for her bag, a small faded photograph slips out, fluttering to the floor. Daniel bends to pick it up before she can stop him, his fingers brushing the worn edges. It's a picture of a younger Amara, standing beside a man with hard eyes and a crooked smile. Her brother, Malik. Who's this? Daniel asks, his voice cautious, his eyes flicking to hers. Amara's breath catches, her hand snatching the photo back, her fingers trembling. Nobody, she says, too quick, her voice sharp enough to cut glass. But Daniel's gaze lingers, his mind flashing to the torn letter he saw in her bag. Malik. You can't hide forever. The name burns in his memory, a puzzle piece he can't place. Amara stuffs the photo into her bag, her movements jerky, her heart pounding as memories of Malik's threats flood back. His voice, his fists, the life she fled. She slings the bag over her shoulder, her eyes meeting Daniel's again. Defiant. Let's go, she says, nodding toward Lucas. He needs me now. Daniel steps aside, letting her pass, but his mind churns. The photograph a shadow he can't shake. Amara walks toward Lucas, kneeling to take his hand, her touch gentle but firm. The boy's hum softens, his small fingers curling around hers, and for a moment, the world feels right again. But as they leave the center, Daniel trailing behind, the photograph lingers in his thoughts, a silent warning of a past that's closing in. Amara's boots hit the pavement outside, each step a declaration of her return. Not as a maid, but as someone who belongs. Lucas clings to her hand, his trust a weight she carries willingly. Daniel follows, the sensory book still in his grip, a reminder of his debt to her. The Chicago night hums around them, but in Amara's bag the photograph lies hidden, a ticking bomb waiting to explode. You're a liability, Amara. You'll drag this family into the gutter. Margaret Whitaker's voice slices through the dining room of the Whitaker estate, her words dripping with venom as she glares at Amara Johnson. Her manicured nails tap the polished table, each click a hammer striking Amara's resolve. Amara stands near the doorway, her arms crossed, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ache, fighting the urge to snap back. She's back in the house as Lucas's caregiver, but Margaret, Daniel's older sister, looms like a storm, her tailored blazer and cold eyes screaming privilege. The air crackles, thick with accusation, as Lucas plays quietly in the corner, his small hands clutching a sensory ball Amara gave him. You don't belong here, Margaret continues, stepping closer, her heels clicking like gunfire. A maid playing nanny? It's a scandal waiting to happen. Amara's chest burns, her fingers digging into her biceps to keep from shaking. She's faced this before. Judgment for her skin, her job. But Margaret's attack feels personal, a blade aimed at her heart. I'm here for Lucas, Amara says, her voice low, steady, each word a shield. Not for your approval. Margaret's lips curl, a smirk that cuts deeper than words. Don't play noble, Margaret snaps, cutting her off. I know about your past, Malik. Trouble follows you, doesn't it? Amara's breath catches, her heart slamming against her ribs. The name, Malik, her brother, hits like a fist, dragging up memories of his fists, his threats, the life she fled. How does Margaret know? Her eyes narrow, searching Margaret's face for answers. But the older woman's gaze is icy, unyielding. You're a risk, Margaret says, her voice a hiss, and I protect this family's name. Daniel steps into the room, his shoulders tense, his face darkening as he catches the tail end of the exchange. Enough, Margaret, he says, his voice sharp, cutting through the tension. Amara's here because I asked her to be. For Lucas. Margaret's head snaps toward him, her eyes flashing with disdain. You're blind, Daniel, she says. She's not just a maid. She's a problem. I've heard things. Dangerous things. Daniel's jaw tightens, his fists clenching at his sides. But Amara's gaze flicks to him, a silent plea to stay calm. I'm not your problem, Amara says, stepping forward, her boots firm against the floor. Your brother's trust is what matters, not your rumors. Margaret's smirk falters, but she recovers, leaning in. Trust? You think trust erases a criminal past? I've got emails, proof about your brother. You can't hide from that. Amara's heart stutters, her nails biting into her palms. Emails? Proof? The photograph from her bag, Malik's face, his crooked smile, flashes in her mind, a ghost she thought she'd buried. Daniel steps between them, his voice low. Dangerous. Back off, Margaret. You don't get to dictate who stays in my house. Margaret's eyes narrow, but she doesn't retreat. This isn't just your house, she says. It's our legacy, and she'll ruin it. Her words hang heavy, a threat wrapped in silk. Amara's chest tightens, her breath shallow, as she realizes Margaret's not just attacking her. She's hiding something, a plan bigger than personal dislike. The mention of Malik, the emails, feels like a trap closing in. Lucas's soft hum breaks the silence, his sensory ball rolling across the floor toward Amara. She kneels, picking it up, her hands steady despite the storm inside her. I'm here for him, she says, her voice cutting through Margaret's venom, her eyes locked on Daniel. Not for your family's games. Daniel nods, his gaze softening, but Margaret's smirk returns, colder now. We'll see, she says, turning on her heel, her departure a promise of more to come. Amara hands the ball to Lucas, her fingers brushing his, her heart racing as she feels Margaret's words linger like poison. Daniel watches her, his eyes heavy with questions he doesn't voice. The photograph, Malik's name, the emails, pieces of a puzzle that neither fully understands. Amara's resolve hardens, her jaw set as she meets Daniel's gaze. She knows too much, she says, her voice barely above a whisper. Daniel's brow furrows, his hand twitching, as if to reach for her, but he stops. The air hums with unspoken danger, and Amara knows. Margaret's not just a threat, she's a hunter, and Amara's past is her prey. The sensory ball rests in Lucas's hands, its bright colors a stark contrast to the shadow creeping over the estate. Amara's fingers linger on it, her heart pounding with the certainty that Margaret's words are only the beginning of a larger fight. You're digging your own grave, Amara. The anonymous email's words sear into Amara Johnson's mind, her fingers gripping the phone so tight her knuckles bleach white. She stands in the Whitaker estate's kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator a faint pulse against the storm raging inside her. Her jaw clenches, teeth grinding as she rereads the message, its venom echoing Margaret Whitaker's earlier attack. Malik. Trouble follows you. The name of her brother, a ghost she thought she'd outrun, claws at her, dragging up memories of his fists, his threats, the life she fled in Chicago's underbelly. Her heart pounds a relentless drumbeat as she fights the urge to bolt, to disappear again. Daniel Whitaker strides in, his face taut, his eyes scanning her like a man searching for cracks in a dam. What's that? he asks, his voice sharp, nodding at the phone. Amara's breath catches, her fingers trembling as she hesitates. She doesn't want to let him in, doesn't want to expose the raw wound of her past. But Lucas's soft hum from the living room, his small hands clutching the sensory ball she gave him, anchors her. She can't run, not from him. It's about Malik, she says, her voice low, each word a stone dropped into still water. Someone knows he's my brother. Someone's watching me. Daniel's eyes narrow, his fists clenching at his sides. Margaret, he says, the name a growl. She mentioned him yesterday. She's behind this. Amara shakes her head, her lips pressing tight. Maybe, but she's not working alone. Her mind flashes to the photograph that slipped from her bag, Malik's hard eyes staring back, and the torn letter Daniel saw. You can't hide forever. The pieces don't fit, not yet, but the threat feels closer now, a noose tightening around her neck. We need to find out who, Daniel says, stepping closer, his voice urgent, cutting through the air like a blade. He turns to Thomas, the butler, who's lingered quietly by the door, his weathered face creased with concern. Thomas, you've got contacts. Can you dig into this? Thomas nods, his hands folding tight, a soldier ready for battle. I know a guy, ex-cop. He can trace emails, phone records, anything. Amara's chest tightens, her nails biting into her palms. She spent years hiding, keeping her past locked away, but now it's spilling out, and she's not sure she's ready to face it. They move to Daniel's study, a room of dark wood and heavy silence. Amara sits, her boots tapping restlessly against the floor, while Thomas makes calls, his voice low, clipped. Daniel paces, his shoulders rigid, his fingers twitching as if itching to break something. If Margaret's digging into your past, he says, she's got a reason. She's too calculated for this to be just spite. Amara's eyes flicker to him, her heart racing. She said I'd ruin your legacy, she says. What's she protecting? Daniel stops, his jaw tightening, a shadow crossing his face. I don't know, but I'll find out. Thomas hangs up, his face grim. My guy found something. The email came from a burner account, routed through a VPN. But there's a lead, a PI firm Margaret's been paying for months. Amara's breath hitches, her fingers gripping the armrest. A private investigator, she asks, her voice sharp. Thomas nods. They've been tailing you, Amara. Got files on your old life, your brother, even court records from 10 years ago. Her heart stutters, her mind reeling. Court records. The testimony she gave anonymously against Malik's crime ring, the reason she ran, changed her name, and became invisible. Someone's peeling back that veil. Court records? Daniel asks, his voice low, dangerous. What's in them? Amara's throat closes, her teeth grinding as she fights the urge to shut down. She stands pacing, her boots striking the floor like a metronome. I testified against Malik, she says finally, her voice raw. Each word a wound reopened. He was running drugs, debts, pulling me in to clean up his mess. I got out, turned him in, but he swore he'd find me. Her hands shake, her nails digging deeper into her palms, drawing a faint sting of blood. Daniel's eyes widen, his fists unclenching, replaced by a flicker of awe, of guilt. You testified? He asked, stepping closer. You took down a crime ring? Amara's lips twist, a bitter smile. I survived, that's all. But her voice trembles, betraying the weight of those years. Malik's fists, the nights she slept with a knife under her pillow, the fear that followed her across state lines. Thomas clears his throat, breaking the tension. There's more, he says. The PI's been tracking a phone. Malik's. It's active. In Chicago. Amara's knees buckle, but she catches herself, her hands slamming against the desk. He's here? She whispers, her voice a blade of fear and defiance. Daniel's face hardens, his eyes burning with resolve. He won't touch you, he says, his voice a vow. Not while I'm here. Amara meets his gaze, her heart pounding, torn between trust and terror. She wants to believe him, but Malik's shadow looms large, a predator she knows too well. Thomas pulls out a laptop, his fingers flying across the keys. I've got a friend pulling phone logs, he says. We'll find where he's been. Amara nods, her jaw set, her resolve steeling. She's done running, done hiding. For Lucas, for herself, she'll face this. They dig deeper, piecing together fragments. The PI's reports mention a meeting between Margaret and a man matching Malik's description, spotted at a downtown bar. Amara's breath catches, her fingers twitching as she recalls Margaret's smirk, her cryptic warnings. She knows him, Amara says, her voice cutting through the room. Margaret's not just digging, she's connected to him. Daniel's eyes narrow, his fists clenching again. Why would she work with your brother? He asks. Amara shakes her head, her mind racing. Money, power, something she's hiding. The puzzle grows, its edges sharp and dangerous. Thomas pulls up a grainy photo from a street camera. Malik, older now, his face harder, standing outside a sleek office building. Amara's heart stops, her nails biting into her palms as she stares at the man who broke her life. That's him, she says, her voice barely audible, but firm. Daniel's hand hovers near hers, not touching, but close, a silent promise. We'll stop him, he says, and her. Amara nods, her eyes locked on the photo, her resolve afire burning through her fear. As they plan their next move, Amara's phone buzzes again, another anonymous message. You can't outrun me, little sister. Her fingers tremble, but she doesn't flinch. She hands the phone to Daniel, her eyes fierce. He's close, she says, her voice ablade. But so are we. The laptop screen glows, Malik's face staring back, a shadow they're ready to drag into the light. You're protecting a criminal, Margaret. Why? Daniel Whitaker's voice slashes through the tense air of his study, his eyes locked on the grainy photo of Malik on the laptop screen. His fists clench, knuckles white, as he leans over the desk, the weight of betrayal burning in his chest. Amara Johnson stands beside him, her jaw tight, her fingers gripping the edge of the desk so hard her nails bite into the wood. Her heart pounds a relentless hammer as the name, Malik, her brother, echoes in her mind, dragging up the pain of his fists, his threats, the life she fled. The anonymous email's words, "You can't outrun me, little sister," still sear her thoughts, but she stands firm, her eyes blazing with defiance. Thomas, the butler, scrolls through the laptop, his weathered hands steady despite the storm brewing in the room. Got something, he says, his voice low, cutting through the silence like a blade. He pulls up a scanned document, an old financial record from Whitaker Enterprises, dated 10 years ago. Amara's breath catches, her teeth grinding as she scans the numbers. A series of wire transfers to a shell company, signed off by Margaret Whitaker. The recipient's name is buried in fine print, but Thomas highlights it. Malik Johnson. Amara's knees buckle, her hands slamming against the desk to steady herself. He was working with her, she whispers, her voice raw, each word a wound reopened. Daniel's head snaps toward her, his eyes wide, shock etching his face. Your brother? With my sister? His voice cracks, a mix of fury and disbelief. Amara nods, her lips pressed tight, her heart racing as the pieces fall into place. Malik ran drugs, debts, anything that paid, she says, her words sharp, deliberate. He pulled me into his mess, forced me to help until I turned him in. But this is bigger. Her fingers tremble, but she doesn't flinch, her eyes locked on the screen. The document shows payments for consulting services, but the dates align with her testimony against Malik's crime ring, a truth she buried to survive. Thomas clicks on another file, a grainy email exchange between Margaret and an unnamed contact. Found this in the PI's server, he says, his voice grim. It's coded, but look at the timing. The emails, dated months before Amara's hiring, mention cleaning up loose ends and keeping the past buried. One line stands out. The girl's a risk. She knows too much. Amara's chest tightens, her nails digging deeper into the desk. They're talking about me, she says, her voice a blade cutting through the room. Margaret knew who I was before I even set foot here. Daniel's face darkens, his fist slamming the desk, the sound a gunshot in the quiet. She hired you to watch you, he says, his voice low, dangerous, to make sure you didn't talk. Amara's heart stutters, her mind reeling as the truth unfolds. Margaret's hostility wasn't just prejudice, it was fear. Fear that Amara's past, her testimony, could unravel a secret tied to Whitaker Enterprises. Your sister was in business with Malik, Amara says, her voice steady despite the storm inside. She used his ring to wash money for the company. When I testified, I didn't just burn him. I burned her. Daniel paces, his shoes striking the floor, his hands raking through his hair. Money laundering? He says, his voice a growl. My own sister? The betrayal cuts deep, his chest heaving as he grapples with the truth. He stops, turning to Amara, his eyes searching hers. You were a threat to her legacy, he says. That's why she's coming for you. Amara's lips twist, a bitter smile. I was a kid trying to survive, she says. She was a Whitaker protecting her empire. Her words sting, a rebuke to the family's power, and Daniel's face twitches, guilt mixing with rage. Thomas pulls up another record, a bank statement showing a recent payment from Margaret to the same PI firm tracking Amara. She's still covering her tracks, he says, his voice firm, and Malik's back in Chicago, probably on her dime. Amara's heart skips, her fingers trembling as she recalls the email's threat. He's not just after me, she says, her voice low, fierce. He's her weapon. Daniel's eyes meet hers, a silent vow forming. He won't touch you, he says, his voice a steel promise. Not while I'm here. Amara nods, her jaw set, her resolve of fire burning through her fear. She's done hiding, done running from the shadow of her brother and the weight of Margaret's schemes. But the truth is a blade, cutting both ways. It exposes Margaret's crimes but puts Amara in the crosshairs. Daniel's hand hovers near hers, not touching, but close, a gesture of trust she's starting to believe. Thomas closes the laptop, his eyes heavy with purpose. We need more, he says. Something to nail her. Amara's gaze falls on the desk, where Lucas's sensory book lies, its bright cover a beacon in the dim study. Her fingers brush its edge, her heart pounding with the certainty that this fight isn't just for her, it's for Lucas, for the boy who sees her. The document on the screen, with Malik's name in stark black ink, looms like a guillotine, ready to fall. You thought you could ruin me, little sister? Malik Johnson's voice snarls, low and venomous, as he looms in the doorway of the Whitaker Estates storage room, his silhouette a dark blade against the dim hallway. Amara Johnson's heart slams against her ribs, her fingers gripping the edge of a wooden crate, her nails biting into the splintered wood. Her breath catches, her jaw clenching so tight her teeth ache, as memories of Malik's fists, his threats, flood back like a tidal wave. She's trapped, the door locked behind her, Lucas's soft whimpers echoing from the living room where she left him moments ago. Her boots scrape the concrete floor, her body coiled, ready to fight or flee. You don't get to haunt me anymore, Amara snaps, her voice a steel whip, her eyes blazing despite the fear clawing at her chest. Malik's lips curl into a crooked smirk, his eyes hard, glinting with the same cruelty she fled a decade ago. He steps closer, a crowbar dangling loosely in his hand, its metal edge catching the faint light. Margaret paid me to scare you, he says, his voice a hiss. But this is personal. Amara's heart stutters, her mind racing. Margaret's betrayal, the financial records tying her to Malik's crime ring, the emails, all of it led to this moment. She'd been checking the storage room for Lucas's sensory toys when Malik slipped in, locking the door with a click that echoed like a gunshot. Her phone left on the kitchen counter is useless now, and Daniel is at a board meeting downtown, unaware of the danger closing in. Amara's fingers tighten on the crate, her knuckles whitening as she calculates her odds. You're her dog, she says, her words sharp, cutting, doing her dirty work, pathetic. Malik's smirk vanishes, his grip on the crowbar tightening, his eyes flashing with rage. Don't push me, he growls, stepping closer, the crowbar swinging slightly, a threat unspoken. Amara's breath hitches, her body tensing as she scans the room. Shelves of old files, a rusted lock on the door, a narrow vent too small to crawl through. Her heart pounds for Lucas, alone and vulnerable, his meltdown brewing without her song to calm him. "Lucas needs me," she says, her voice steady, a blade of defiance. "You won't stop that." Malik laughs, a cold, jagged sound. "That kid, he's your weakness, always were too soft." Amara's chest burns, her nails digging deeper into the wood, drawing a faint sting of blood. She remembers the sensory book, the drawing Lucas made, her stick figure holding his hand, and her resolve hardens. She won't let Malik take that from her. She steps forward, her boots firm, closing the gap between them. "You're wrong," she says, her voice low, fierce. "He's my strength." Malik's eyes narrow, his crowbar rising, but before he can swing, a crash echoes from the living room. Lucas screaming, his meltdown erupting. Amara's heart lurches, her body moving on instinct. She lunges, shoving Malik hard, catching him off guard. He stumbles, the crowbar clattering to the floor, but he recovers fast, his hand grabbing her wrist, twisting until pain shoots up her arm. She bites back a cry, her free hand clawing at his face, nails raking skin. "Let go!" she hisses, her voice a blade, her knee slamming into his thigh. Malik roars, shoving her back, and she hits the crate, her shoulder throbbing. But she doesn't fall. Lucas's screams grow louder, a desperate plea that fuels her fight. Amara scrambles for the crowbar, her fingers brushing its cold metal, but Malik's faster, kicking it out of reach. "You're not leaving," he snarls, his hand closing around her arm again, dragging her toward the door. Amara's heart races, her mind flashing to her old life, picking locks to escape Malik's traps, surviving his wrath. She twists, her elbow slamming into his ribs, breaking free for a moment. Her hands fumble for the door's lock, her fingers trembling but precise, muscle memory kicking in from years of survival. The lock clicks, but Malik's on her again, his arm wrapping around her neck, squeezing tight. "You'll pay," he whispers, his breath hot against her ear. Amara's vision blurs, her lungs burning, but Lucas's cries cut through the haze, a beacon pulling her back. She stomps hard on Malik's foot, her boot grinding into his toes, and he loosens his grip, cursing. She breaks free, stumbling into the hallway, her chest heaving, her eyes locked on the living room, where Lucas rocks wildly, his hands flailing. Amara runs, her boots pounding the floor, her heart a war drum. She reaches Lucas, kneeling, her voice soft but urgent. "I'm here, Lucas," she says, her hands hovering near his, not touching, respecting his space. His screams are quiet, his rocking slowing, but Malik's footsteps echo behind her, heavy and relentless. She turns, her body shielding Lucas, her eyes fierce. "You won't touch him," she says, her voice a vow, her hands trembling but ready to fight. Malik pauses, his smirk returning, the crowbar back in his hand, a promise of violence hanging in the air. The hallway stretches behind him, a tunnel of danger, but Amara's resolve is a fire, unyielding. Lucas's sensory ball rolls across the floor, its bright colors a defiant spark against the looming threat of Malik's shadow. "You can't stop what's coming, Amara." Malik's taunt echoes in the hallway, his boots thudding closer, the crowbar glinting in his hand like a predator's claw. Amara Johnson's heart slams against her ribs, her body shielding Lucas, whose whimpers pierce the air like shards of glass. Her jaw clenches, teeth grinding as she fights the panic clawing at her chest. Lucas's small hands flail, his meltdown spiraling, and Amara's fingers tremble, itching to soothe him. But Malik's shadow looms, a threat she can't ignore. Her boots scrape the hardwood, her eyes darting for an escape, her mind racing with the skills she honed in her past life. Picking locks, outrunning danger, surviving her brother's wrath. She grabs Lucas's sensory ball, pressing it into his hands, her voice low, urgent. "Hold this, Lucas. I'm right here." His rocking slows, his fingers clutching the ball, but his whimpers persist, a plea that fuels her fire. Malik steps closer, his smirk twisting, the crowbar swinging lazily. "You're still weak," he sneers, his voice a blade. "Always were." Amara's chest burns, her nails biting into her palms as she stands, placing herself between Lucas and Malik. "Weak?" she snaps, her voice sharp, cutting. I outran you once. I'll do it again. Her words are a defiance, a spark igniting her resolve. Malik lunges, the crowbar arcing toward her, but Amara ducks, her body moving on instinct, honed from years of dodging his rage. She shoves Lucas toward the living room, whispering, "Run, baby! Hide!" Lucas stumbles, clutching the ball, his small frame disappearing behind the couch. Amara's heart lurches, but she turns, facing Malik, her boots planted firm. He swings again, the crowbar grazing her shoulder, pain flaring like fire. She bites back a cry, her hand grabbing a nearby vase, hurling it at him. It shatters against his arm, staggering him, and she bolts, her boots pounding toward the study where she knows Margaret's secrets hide. Her shoulder throbs, her breath ragged, but she doesn't stop. The study door looms ahead and she slams through it, her hands fumbling for the desk. Malik's footsteps thunder behind her, his curses a storm chasing her heels. Amara's fingers tear through drawers, papers scattering like leaves, her heart racing as she searches for something, anything to end this. Her eyes catch a glint. A USB drive, tucked beneath a stack of files, its black casing marked with a faint MW at Margaret Whitaker. Her breath catches, her fingers snatching it, her nails scraping the plastic as she clutches it tight. Malik bursts in, his crowbar raised, his eyes wild. "Give it up, Amara," he growls, stepping closer. "You're done." Amara's back presses against the desk, her heart a war drum, but her eyes blaze, unyielding. "You're done," she says, her voice a blade, slipping the USB into her pocket. She feints left, dodging as Malik swings, the crowbar splintering the desk's edge. Her hands find a paperweight, heavy and cold, and she hurls it, striking his knee. He roars, stumbling, and she sprints past him, her boots skidding as she races back to the living room. Lucas huddles behind the couch, his sensory ball clutched tight, his whimpers softening as he sees her. Amara kneels, her voice steady despite the pain in her shoulder. "You're safe, Lucas," she says, her hand hovering near his, not touching. His eyes meet hers, trust flickering, and she hums a soft note of the folk song, calming his storm. Her heart swells, but Malik's footsteps echo again, slower now, his knee hobbled. She stands, her fingers tightening around the USB, her resolve of fire burning through her fear. She pulls Lucas to his feet, guiding him toward the kitchen, her eyes scanning for a phone. Her own lies abandoned on the counter, and she grabs it, her fingers flying to dial Thomas, the butler, who's off-site but her only ally. "Thomas," she whispers, her voice urgent. "Malik's here. I've got proof. Get the police." Thomas's voice crackles through, calm but sharp. "Hold tight. I'm 10 minutes out." Amara's chest heaves, her shoulder throbbing, but she nods, her jaw set. She turns to Lucas, her voice soft. "Stay here, baby. I'll be back." She slips into the hallway, her boots silent now, her body low as she moves toward the back door. Malik's curses grow louder, his limping steps closing in. Amara's mind flashes to her old life, picking locks to escape Malik's traps, slipping through shadows to survive. She reaches the door, her fingers working the rusted lock. Muscle memory guiding her. It clicks open, but Malik's hand grabs her arm, yanking her back. "You're not leaving," he snarls, his grip bruising. Amara twists, her elbow slamming into his ribs, breaking free. She stumbles outside, the USB still in her pocket, her heart pounding with the weight of what it holds. Thomas's voice echoes in her mind. Proof. And she knows the USB is the key to ending Margaret's schemes. She sprints toward the garage, her boots crunching gravel, her shoulders screaming with each step. Malik's shouts fade, his hobbled knee slowing him, but the danger lingers, a shadow she can't outrun yet. She reaches the garage, her hands fumbling for the car keys Daniel keeps there, her fingers trembling but precise. The USB burns in her pocket, a weapon she's not yet wielded. She glances back at the house where Lucas waits, his sensory ball a beacon of her promise to protect him. Her phone buzzes. Thomas texting, "Police en route. Stay safe." Amara's breath steadies, her resolve a steel rod. She's not just surviving now, she's fighting. For Lucas, for herself, for the truth. The USB in her pocket is a ticking bomb, ready to blow Margaret's secrets wide open. But the sound of Malik's limping steps, distant but relentless, warns her the battle's not over. You sold our family for your own greed, Margaret. Daniel Whitaker's voice thunders through the boardroom of Whitaker Enterprises, his eyes blazing as he slams the USB drive onto the mahogany table. The room freezes, 11 board members' faces a mix of shock and unease, their hands gripping folders, pens stilled mid-scribble. Amara Johnson stands beside him, her boots planted firm, her jaw clenched tight, her heart pounding like a war drum. Her shoulder throbs from Malik's attack, but her eyes burn with defiance. The USB, a black shard of truth. Her weapon against Margaret Whitaker's empire of lies. Her fingers twitch, itching to hold Lucas's sensory ball, but she stands tall, her resolve a fire that won't be snuffed out. Margaret, seated at the table's far end, rises, her tailored blazer crisp, her face a mask of icy control. "You're delusional, Daniel," she snaps, her voice sharp, cutting like glass. "Accusing me of some maid's vendetta? Pathetic." Her words sting, aimed at Amara's skin, her place. But Amara doesn't flinch. Her nails bite into her palms, her chest burning with the weight of Margaret's betrayal. The financial records, the emails, the decade-old deal with Malik that funded her rise while shattering Amara's life. "I'm not your maid," Amara says, her voice low, a blade slicing through the room. "I'm the one who survived your brother." Daniel's hand hovers near hers, a silent anchor, as he clicks a remote, projecting the USB's contents onto the screen. Bank transfers flash, stark numbers linking Whitaker Enterprises to Malik's shell company, signed by Margaret. Gasps ripple through the board, faces paling as the truth unfolds. "You laundered money through Malik's ring," Daniel says, his voice a growl, each word a hammer. "You used Amara's brother to hide your dirt, and when she testified, you buried her to save yourself." Margaret's lips part, her eyes darting, but she recovers, her smirk cold. "Lies," she hisses. "You have no proof." Amara steps forward, her boots striking the floor, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "I am the proof," she says, her words cutting through Margaret's facade. "I testified against Malik. I ran from him, from you, but I'm done hiding." Her heart races, her mind flashing to the storage room, Malik's crowbar, Lucas's whimpers. She pulls a folded paper from her pocket, the anonymous email, "You can't outrun me, little sister," and tosses it onto the table. "You sent this," she says, her eyes locking on Margaret's. "You hired him to scare me, to keep your secrets safe." The board murmurs, chairs shifting, eyes flicking between Margaret and the screen. Philip Albright, the oldest member, leans forward, his voice gruff. "Explain this, Margaret." Her face twitches, her hands clenching, but she doesn't speak. Daniel presses the remote again, revealing an email from Margaret to the PI. "The girl's a risk. Bury her past." The room erupts in whispers, the board's composure cracking. Margaret's eyes narrow, her voice a hiss. "You're ruining us, Daniel," she says. "For her?" Daniel's fist slams the table, silencing the room. "No," he says, "for the truth." Amara's chest swells, her breath shallow but steady as she steps closer to the screen. "You didn't just hurt me," she says, her voice a blade, each word aimed at Margaret. "You hurt Lucas. You used my pain to protect your power, but it ends here." Her words ring out, a declaration of her strength, her survival. The board watches, some nodding, others frozen, as her presence fills the room. Not a maid, not a victim, but a woman unyielding. Linda Cho, a sharp-eyed executive, stands. "This is damning," she says, her voice firm. "Margaret, you're done." Margaret's face pales, her hands trembling, but she tries one last defense. "You can't trust her," she snaps, pointing at Amara. "She's a nobody, a liar." Amara's jaw tightens, her fingers curling, but she doesn't back down. "I'm a survivor," she says, her voice clear, cutting, "and survivors tell the truth." The board falls silent, her words a weight that shifts the room's tide. Philip clears his throat, his voice heavy. "Margaret, step down. Now." Her smirk collapses, her shoulders sagging, the fight draining from her eyes. Daniel nods to Thomas, who's been waiting by the door, his face grim but resolute. Police are outside, Thomas says, his voice low. Final. They've got Malik in custody, and they want to talk to you, Margaret. Her eyes widen, her hands clutching the table. But there's no escape. The board votes unanimously to remove her, their hands raised like a guillotine falling. Margaret stands, her face a mask of fury and defeat, and walks out, her heels clicking, a defeated rhythm. Amara exhales, her shoulders loosening, her heart still racing, but lighter now. Daniel's hand brushes hers, a fleeting touch, his eyes heavy with gratitude, with awe. You did it, he says, his voice soft. A vow. Amara nods, her lips pressing tight, her eyes flickering to the screen, where the USB's truth still glows. She thinks of Lucas, safe now, his sensory ball a beacon of her promise to him. The boardroom hums with tension, but also with a new respect. A shift Amara feels in their gazes, not pity, but recognition. The USB lies on the table, its black casing a silent testament to the truth they've unleashed. A spark that set Margaret's empire ablaze and lit Amara's path forward. You're finished, Margaret. Face it. Daniel Whitaker's voice cuts through the tense air of the Whitaker Estates foyer, his eyes blazing as he confronts his sister, Margaret, one last time. Her tailored blazer hangs loose, her face pale, her hands trembling as she clutches a leather briefcase, the last remnant of her power. Amara Johnson stands nearby, her boots planted firm, her jaw clenched tight, her heart pounding with the weight of victory. Her shoulder still throbs from Malik's attack, but her eyes burn with defiance. The USB's truth, Margaret's money laundering scheme with Malik, still fresh from the boardroom takedown. Lucas huddles beside her, his small fingers clutching her hand, his sensory ball tucked under his arm. You can't erase me, Margaret snaps, her voice a hiss, but it's weak, a blade dulled by defeat. This family is mine too. Daniel steps closer, his fists clenching, his voice low, lethal. You sold our family for your greed. You're done. His words land like a hammer, and Margaret's smirk crumbles, her eyes darting to the door where two police officers wait, their badges glinting like a guillotine. Amara's chest tightens, her nails biting into her palms as she watches Margaret's empire collapse. The woman who called her a liability, who used Malik to threaten her, now stripped bare. The officers step forward, one cuffing Margaret's wrists, the click of metal a final note in her downfall. You'll regret this, Margaret hisses, her eyes locking on Amara, venomous but powerless. Amara's lips pressed tight, her voice steady, cutting. I survived worse than you. I'm still here. Her words are a shield, a declaration of her strength, and Margaret's face twists, her defiance snuffed out. The officers led her out, her heels dragging, her briefcase left behind, a hollow relic of her betrayal. Daniel turns to Amara, his eyes heavy with guilt, with gratitude. I'm sorry, he says, his voice raw, each word scraped from a place he's kept buried. For what she did, for what I did. Amara's heart stutters, her fingers loosening around Lucas's hand. She wants to hold on to her anger, but Lucas's soft hum, his trust in her, softens her resolve. You're not her, she says, her voice low, firm. You chose truth. Daniel's shoulders sag, his breath catching, as if her words have lifted a weight he's carried too long. Lucas tugs at her hand, his eyes bright, his voice rare and clear. Mama Amara, he says, the words a spark that ignites the room. Amara's breath catches, her chest swelling, her eyes burning as she kneels, her hands hovering near his. Hey, baby, she whispers, her voice trembling but warm, her fingers brushing his cheek. Lucas leans into her touch, his sensory ball rolling to the floor, a bright beacon of their bond. Daniel watches, his throat tightening, a mix of awe and gratitude etching his face. He kneels beside them, his hand resting on Lucas's shoulder, a silent vow to be better, to see Amara for who she is. Thomas the butler steps into the foyer, his weathered face creased with relief. Malik's locked up, he says, his voice steady. Charged with assault, extortion, and the old drug charges are being reopened. Amara nods, her jaw set, her heart lighter but still racing. The shadow of her brother, the man who broke her life, is gone, caged by the truth she helped expose. Daniel's eyes meet hers, a flicker of something new. Trust, respect, a beginning. You didn't just save Lucas, he says, his voice soft, a promise. You saved us. Amara stands, her boots firm, her eyes fierce but warm. The foyer hums with a new energy. The weight of Margaret's schemes lifted, the air no longer thick with fear. Lucas clings to her hand, his hum steady, and Amara feels it. A shift, a home forming where pain once stood. The sensory ball lies on the floor, its colors vibrant, a symbol of the justice they've won in the family they're building. You gave my son a home again, Amara. Now let me give back. Daniel Whitaker's voice cuts through the quiet of the Whitaker estate's living room, his eyes locked on Amara Johnson, steady and raw with purpose. His hands grip a stack of papers, blueprints for something bigger than himself, as he stands before her. Amara's heart pounds, her fingers twitching at her sides, her jaw clenched tight to hold back the flood of emotions. Relief, hope, the weight of surviving Malik's attack, and Margaret's betrayal. Lucas sits nearby, his small hands clutching his sensory ball, humming softly, a beacon of calm in the storm they've weathered. Give back? Amara's voice is sharp, a blade honed by years of being unseen, her boots planted firm on the hardwood floor. Her eyes narrow, searching Daniel's face for sincerity, still wary after his initial rejection. His words, "You're the maid. You clean," lingering like a bruise. I didn't do this for you, she says, her words deliberate, cutting. I did it for Lucas. Daniel's face twitches, a flicker of guilt, but he steps closer, his voice low, unwavering. I know, he says, and that's why I'm doing this. He spreads the papers on the coffee table, revealing plans for the Light of Lucas Foundation, a nonprofit to support autistic children and immigrant families. Amara's breath catches, her fingers loosening, her eyes scanning the documents, program outlines, funding proposals, a mission statement centered on compassion. This is real? She asks, her voice softer now, a crack in her armor. Daniel nods, his hands steady, his eyes burning with resolve. It's for kids like Lucas, he says, and for people like you, survivors who deserve a chance. Amara's chest tightens, her nails biting into her palms as she fights the urge to pull back. She spent years hiding, her past with Malik a shadow she outran. But Daniel's gesture feels like a spotlight, illuminating her strength. You're not just throwing money at this, she says, her voice a challenge. What's your stake? Daniel's lips press tight, his throat bobbing as he swallows hard. My stake is you, he says, his voice raw, each word a vow. You showed me what I was too blind to see. I failed Lucas once. I failed you. This is me making it right. She steps closer, her boots scuffing the floor, her eyes fierce but searching. Right for who? She asks, her voice low, cutting. For your conscience or for us? Daniel's shoulders sag, his hands spreading the papers wider, a gesture of surrender. For all of us, he says, for every kid who needs what you gave Lucas, for every family who's been pushed aside. Amara's heart stutters, her fingers brushing the papers, her mind racing with the possibility, a chance to use her pain, her knowledge, to build something lasting. Thomas the butler steps into the room, his weathered face creased with pride. I've got contacts ready, he says, his voice firm, a soldier reporting for duty. Community centers, therapists, donors. They're waiting for your call. Amara's eyes flick to him, her chest swelling, her resolve of fire reigniting. She thinks of the community center, the kids she taught to find calm in music, the life she carved out despite her past. I want in, she says, her voice steady, a blade of purpose. Not as a figurehead, as a leader. Daniel nods, his eyes softening, a smile breaking through. You're the heart of this, he says. Program director, full control, and I'll fund your degree. Child psychology, what you started. Amara's breath catches, her hands trembling, her heart pounding, with a hope she hasn't dared feel since Malik stole her dreams. My degree? She asks, her voice cracking, raw. Daniel steps closer, his hand hovering near hers. Not touching, but close. You deserve it, he says. Lucas deserves you. Lucas's hum grows louder, his sensory ball rolling across the floor toward Amara. She kneels, picking it up, her fingers brushing his, her eyes warm with love. We'll do this together, Lucas, she whispers, her voice a promise. His small hand curls around hers, his hum steady, a trust that anchors her. Daniel watches, his throat tightening, his chest heaving with gratitude, with awe. He's not just redeeming himself, he's building something new, something real, with the woman who saved his son. They move to the study, Amara's boots striking the floor with purpose, Daniel and Thomas flanking her like allies in a war won. They draft plans, Amara's voice leading, her ideas sharp, music therapy programs, scholarships for immigrant families, safe spaces for kids like Lucas. Her hands fly across a notebook, her handwriting bold, her heart racing with the weight of what's possible. Daniel pledges millions, his voice firm, his eyes locked on her, a silent vow to follow her lead. Thomas makes calls, his fingers quick, securing partners, setting dates for a launch event. The room hums with energy, a fire kindled by their shared purpose. Amara's shoulder still aches from Malik's attack, but the pain is a reminder. She survived, and now she's building. She glances at Lucas, playing quietly, his sensory ball a bright spark in his hands. This is for you, she says, her voice soft, fierce, a promise to the boy who sees her. Daniel's hand brushes hers, a fleeting touch, his eyes heavy with respect. And for you, he says, his voice a whisper, a truth. The papers on the table spread like a map to a new future. The light of Lucas' foundation, a beacon rising from the ashes of Margaret's schemes and Malik's threats. Amara's notebook lies open, her bold handwriting a testament to her strength, a spark ready to light 1,000 lives. You're my family now, Mama Amara, right? Lucas's small voice slices through the quiet of the Whitaker estate's garden, his eyes bright, his hands clutching the sensory ball as he looks up at Amara Johnson. Her heart slams against her ribs, her breath catching, her jaw clenching to hold back the flood of emotions. Love, awe, the weight of surviving to hear those words. She kneels, her boots sinking into the soft earth, her fingers hovering near his, not touching, respecting his space. Lucas's hum is steady, a beacon of trust, and Amara's chest swells, her eyes burning with a joy she's never dared feel. Daniel Whitaker stands nearby, his hands in his pockets, his face soft, a smile breaking through the guilt he's carried since he first cast her out. Always, Lucas, Amara says, her voice low, warm, each word a vow carved in stone. I'm right here. Her fingers brush his cheek, gentle but firm, and Lucas leans into her touch, his sensory ball rolling to the ground, its bright colors a spark in the grass. Amara's heart races, her mind flashing to the battles she's fought. Malik's crowbar, Margaret's venom, Daniel's initial rejection, each a blade she's dodged to stand here, whole. Daniel steps closer, his shoes crunching the earth, his eyes heavy with gratitude, with something deeper he's not yet named. You've changed everything, he says, his voice raw, cutting through the air like a confession. Not just for Lucas, for me. Amara's lips press tight, her nails biting into her palms as she fights the urge to deflect. She spent years hiding, her past a shadow she outran, but Daniel's words, his trust, feel like a spotlight on her strength. I didn't plan this, she says, her voice steady, a blade of truth. I just saw a boy who needed me. Daniel's smile widens, his hand hovering near hers, a silent promise of partnership. They move to a small arbor Daniel built, its wooden frame draped with ivy, a quiet space for a ceremony that's not a wedding, but a commitment. Amara's boots strike the ground with purpose, her simple navy dress swaying, her heart pounding with the weight of this moment. Lucas clings to her hand, his hum a melody, while Thomas, the butler, stands nearby, his weathered face creased with pride. A few close friends, community center volunteers, a therapist who's seen Lucas thrive, gather, their presence a warm circle against the world's noise. Daniel faces Amara, His eyes locked on hers, his voice steady. I vow to protect your strength, he says, his words sharp, deliberate. To make room for your voice, even when it shakes. Amara's chest tightens, her fingers trembling, but she meets his gaze, her voice firm. I vow to build something real, she says. For us, for Lucas. Her words cut through the air, a promise forged in fire. Lucas claps, his small hands a burst of joy, and the group laughs, the sound a spark that lights the garden. Amara's mind flashes to a letter she received that morning, slipped under the estate's gate, its envelope worn, the handwriting her mother's. I'm proud of you, Amara. I want to see you again. Her throat closes, her fingers clutching the letter in her pocket, its weight a bridge to a family she thought she'd lost. She hasn't responded yet, but the possibility of reunion, of healing, burns bright, a flame she's ready to carry. She pulls the letter out, showing it to Daniel, her voice soft but fierce. My mom, she says. She found me. Daniel's hand brushes hers, a fleeting touch, his eyes warm. Then we'll find her together, he says, his voice a vow. They kneel beside Lucas, planting a cherry tree, its roots sinking into the earth, a symbol of their new beginning. Amara's hands press the soil, her fingers steady, her heart racing with hope. Lucas's small hands join hers, his hum blending with her soft folk song, a melody that calms his world. Daniel's hands work beside them, his sleeves rolled up, his face soft with purpose. The tree stands tall, its branches a promise of growth, of life rising from pain. Later, Amara steps into the South Chicago Community Center, her boots clicking with confidence, her heart lighter than it's ever been. The room is packed, 50 women in folding chairs, their eyes bright with anticipation. Amara takes the microphone, her hands steady, her voice clear, cutting. I'm Amara Johnson, she says, her words a blade of truth. Some of you know my story, running from a past that tried to break me. But I'm here to tell you, surviving isn't enough. You've got to choose to stand, to be seen. Her chest swells, her eyes scanning the crowd, seeing nods, a woman in the front wiping her face, another clutching a notebook tight. I was called a maid, a nobody, she continues, her voice fierce, each word a spark. But a boy saw me, a man learned to see me, and I learned to see myself. Her hands grip the microphone, her heart pounding with the weight of her journey, from Malik's threats to Margaret's schemes, from Daniel's rejection to his redemption. The women lean forward, their eyes locked on her, their silence a testament to her power. A young woman, barely 20, raises her hand, her voice trembling. How do you forgive yourself for running, she asks. Amara's breath catches, her lips pressing tight. You don't forgive running, she says. You honor it. It kept you alive. Then you choose to stay. The room erupts in applause, a wave of respect, of recognition. Amara steps back, her heart racing, her eyes burning with a release she's never felt. She's not just a survivor, she's a light, a voice for those still in the dark. As the women file out, some hug her, others whisper thanks, their hands clutching hers, their eyes reflecting her strength. Amara's chest swells, her resolve a fire that won't dim. Back at the estate, she sits by the fireplace, Lucas asleep on her lap, his sensory ball tucked under his arm. Daniel joins her, his hand resting on her shoulder, his eyes soft. You were incredible, he says, his voice low, a promise. Amara smiles, her fingers brushing Lucas's hair, her heart steady. We're incredible, she says, her voice warm, fierce. The cherry tree outside stands tall, its silhouette a beacon in the night, a testament to their family, their fight, their future. Moral lesson. True justice isn't just defeating the enemy, it's building a world where compassion outshines prejudice, where every survivor's voice can rise. Amara's notebook lies open on the table, its pages filled with plans for the light of Lucas Foundation, a spark that will light 1,000 lives, a legacy born from pain but forged in love. The story of Amara and Daniel reminds us that true justice isn't just about defeating prejudice. It's about building a world where compassion and trust triumph over pain, where every survivor's voice can rise. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you faced a moment where standing up changed everything? Share your stories in the comments below. Your words might light someone else's path. Thank you for watching, for feeling this journey with us. We'll see you in the next story, where hope always finds a way. Get your hands off my son, you opportunistic leech! James Carver's voice slashes through the humid Hamptons air, sharp as a blade. Lena Brooks freezes, her fingers still steadying Noah's trembling legs in the rose garden. The boy, 8 years old, slumps in his wheelchair, his wide eyes darting between his father and Lena. Her jaw clenches, teeth grinding, as James storms across the manicured lawn, his polished loafers crushing petals underfoot. You think you can play hero with my boy? You're nothing but hired help. His words drip venom, each syllable a calculated strike at her dignity, her race, her place. Lena's pulse hammers, but she keeps her grip gentle on Noah, who whimpers. She's helping me, Dad. James doesn't hear him, his glare locked on Lena like a predator sizing up prey. Don't speak, he snaps, cutting her off before she can open her mouth. I've seen your kind, sneaking into lives you don't belong in, thinking you can climb the ladder by pawing at my son. His accusation lands like a fist, and Noah's small hand tightens on Lena's sleeve, pleading silently. She wants to scream, to defend herself, but James barrels on, relentless. You're a maid. You scrub floors. You don't touch my air like you've earned the right. The air thickens with tension, the garden's beauty a cruel contrast to the ugliness unfolding. Lena's chest tightens, her breath shallow as James looms closer, his shadow swallowing her. I've spent millions on specialists, MIT, Yale, the best minds in medicine. They couldn't get Noah to move. And you, with no degree, no credentials, think you can? His laugh is a jagged edge, slicing deeper. What's next? You'll claim some street-smart miracle? Save it. You're done here. Noah's sob breaks through. No, Dad, please. But James yanks the wheelchair away, the wheels skidding on the stone path. Lena's knees lock, her fist bawling as she fights the sting in her eyes. She won't cry. Not here, not now. Mr. Carver, she says, her voice low, steady. I was teaching him to walk, not stealing him. James spins, his face a mask of fury. Teaching? You? Don't insult me. You're fired. Pack your things and get out before I call security. His words are a whip, each one cracking against her resolve. Noah's cries grow louder, his small body straining toward Lena. But James pulls him back, his grip iron. Enough, Noah. She's nothing to you. The other staff, lingering at the garden's edge, avert their eyes, their silence complicit. Lena's heart pounds, her blood hot with humiliation. But she stands tall, her gaze unwavering. You're wrong about me, Mr. Carver, she says, her voice cutting through the chaos like a knife. And you'll see it when it's too late. She turns, her steps deliberate, each one a defiance against the weight of his scorn. As she walks away, Noah's wails echo behind her, a sound that claws at her soul. James stands frozen, his victory hollow, as the garden falls silent, save for the boy's sobs. The moment lingers, a spark waiting to ignite. James's hand twitches, his eyes narrowing at Lena's retreating figure. But something unspoken gnaws at him, a flicker of doubt, buried deep. In the distance, a single rose petal falls, unnoticed, onto the path where Noah's wheelchair left faint tracks. Lena Brooks strides out of the Carver estate, her worn sneakers hitting the gravel drive with deliberate force. Her hands tremble, not from fear, but from the fire raging in her chest. James's words, "You're nothing but hired help," echo like a slap, but she bites down hard, her jaw tight enough to ache. She won't let him see her break. Noah's sobs still ring in her ears, each one a dagger twisting deeper, but Lena keeps her head high, her eyes fixed on the wrought iron gates ahead. The Hampton sun beats down, indifferent to her humiliation, as she clutches her small bag, the only thing she takes from this place. Back in Brooklyn, her tiny apartment smells of lemon polish and old wood. Lena drops her bag, her knees hitting the floor beside her mother's creaky armchair. "Mama, I tried," she whispers, her voice cracking but resolute. Her mother, frail but sharp-eyed, grips Lena's hand. You did right by that boy. Don't let that man's poison dim your light. Lena nods, her throat burning, and rises to brew tea, the routine grounding her. She won't cry, not over James Carver's cruelty. Instead, she pulls out her phone, scrolling through job listings, her fingers steady despite the storm inside. Noah's face flashes in her mind, his small hand reaching for her, his trust unshaken even as his father tore them apart. She clenches her fist, nails digging into her palm, and vows to keep going. For him, for herself. At the community center where she volunteers, Lena moves with purpose, helping a young girl adjust her crutches. Her smile is warm, but her eyes carry a new weight, a silent promise to prove James wrong. The kids call her Miss Lena, their laughter a balm to the wound he left. She kneels beside a boy struggling to stand, her voice soft but firm. You're stronger than you think, one step at a time. The words echo what she told Noah, and her heart lurches, but she pushes through, her resolve ironclad. She won't let James's venom define her. As she locks up the center that night, Lena pauses under the flickering streetlight, her breath visible in the cool air. You'll see, Mr. Carver, she says to the empty street, her voice low, cutting like steel. Noah deserves better than your blindness. Her words hang in the air, a prophecy unspoken but heavy with truth. She turns toward home, her silhouette sharp against the Brooklyn skyline, unaware that back at the estate, James's doubt is already beginning to crack. James Carver sits alone in his dimly lit study, the Hamptons estate silent except for the faint hum of the air conditioning. His fingers grip a crystal tumbler of bourbon, the amber liquid untouched, as Noah's sobs from the garden replay in his mind, like a relentless drumbeat. His jaw tightens, teeth grinding, as he tries to shove down the unease clawing at his chest. She was nothing, he mutters, but the words feel hollow, like a lie he can't sell to himself. Lena's parting shot, you'll see it when it's too late, stings sharper than he wants to admit. He slams the glass down, the clink echoing, and reaches for the remote, desperate to drown out the guilt. The security feed from the garden flickers onto the flat screen. James freezes, his breath catching as the footage rolls. Lena kneels beside Noah's wheelchair, her hands steady, her voice a soft anchor. One step, Noah. You've got this. The boy's face lights up, his trembling leg inching forward. 3 small steps, deliberate, impossible. No doctor, no specialist, no $1,000,000 therapy ever got him that far. James rewinds, watches again, his pulse hammering. Lena's patience, her quiet strength, radiates through the screen. Undeniable. His fists clench, nails biting into his palms, as a wave of shame crashes over him. He was wrong, dead wrong. He leans back, the leather chair creaking under his weight, and runs a hand through his hair, his usual composure cracking. How did she do it? He whispers, the question bitter on his tongue. He thinks of the specialists, Harvard-trained, pedigreed, useless. And Lena, a maid with no credentials, making miracles in his garden. His pride battles the truth, each frame of the video a jab to his ego. He wants to call her back, to fix this, but the weight of his words, "You're nothing but hired help," chains him to his seat. Noah's trust in Lena, his small hand clutching her sleeve, burns in James's memory, a silent accusation. As he shuts off the screen, a sharp knock breaks the silence. The butler, stiff as always, hands him an envelope, no return address, just his name scrawled in tight, elegant script. James tears it open, his brow furrowing. Inside, a single note. Check her past before you regret it. The words hit like a cold blade, stirring unease. Who sent this? Why now? He crumples the paper, his knuckles white, but the seed of doubt takes root. Not about Lena, but about the shadows circling his family. He glances at the photo of Noah on his desk, the boy's hopeful eyes staring back, and feels the first crack in his armored world. The bourbon sits untouched, the note a weight in his hand. Outside, the Hamptons' night presses against the windows, hiding secrets James can't yet see. But one truth is clear. Lena Brooks did what no one else could, and he cast her out for it. You don't get to walk away after upending my son's life. James Carver's voice cuts through the Brooklyn street noise, raw and unyielding, as he steps out of his sleek black SUV. Lena Brooks pauses mid-stride, her sneakers scuffing the cracked sidewalk outside her apartment building. Her pulse spikes, her jaw locking tight as she turns to face the billionaire who humiliated her days ago. His tailored suit looks out of place against the graffiti-streaked walls, his eyes burning with a mix of fury and something else. Guilt, maybe. You think you can just vanish after what I saw? He snaps, closing the distance, his presence a storm cloud swallowing the daylight. Lena's fists clench, her nails biting into her palms, but she stands her ground, her gaze unflinching. Don't lecture me, Mr. Carver, she fires back, her voice a blade, sharp and controlled. You threw me out, called me nothing. I'm not your property to summon back. James opens his mouth, but she cuts him off, her words slicing through his. You don't get to rewrite the story because you're feeling guilty. Her defiance hits him like a slap, and he flinches, his hand twitching as if to grab her arm, but he stops himself. The street hums with tension. Passers-by glance over, sensing a showdown, but Lena doesn't blink. Noah's tear-streaked face haunts her, fueling her resolve, but she won't bend for this man, not yet. James exhales, his breath sharp, and steps back, his polished facade cracking. I saw the footage, he says, his voice lower, almost breaking. Noah took steps, 3 steps, because of you. Lena's heart lurches, but she keeps her face stone, her eyes narrowing. And, she challenges, you think an apology erases what you said? Opportunistic leech? Your kind? Her words are darts, each one landing with precision. James's jaw tightens, his knuckles whitening as he grips the SUV's door. I was wrong, he admits, the words scraping out like gravel. I'm here to fix it. Come back. For Noah. Lena's chest tightens, Noah's small hand clutching hers in her memory. She wants to say yes, to rush back to the boy who trusted her, but James's arrogance still lingers, a poison in the air. Why should I trust you? She demands, stepping closer, her voice a low growl. You didn't listen. You didn't see me. You saw my skin, my job, and judged. James's eyes flicker, a flash of shame crossing his face, but he doesn't back down. I'm listening now, he says, his tone softer but firm. Noah needs you. I need you to come back. She hesitates, her breath hitching, as she weighs his words against the sting of his earlier venom. The Brooklyn street pulses around them, kids shouting, a car horn blaring. But Lena's world narrows to this moment. She thinks of Noah's hopeful eyes, his trembling steps, and her resolve hardens. If I come back, she says, her voice steel, it's for Noah, not you, and you don't get to control me. James nods, a single sharp jerk of his head, his pride visibly bruised. Deal, he says, but his eyes linger on her, searching, as if seeing her for the first time. As they part ways, Lena's heart pounds, her decision a weight she carries back to her apartment. She passes a bodega, the clerk waving, unaware of the storm inside her. James climbs into his SUV, his hands gripping the wheel, the mysterious note from the estate. Check her past before you regret it. Burning a hole in his pocket. He doesn't know who sent it, but it gnaws at him, a shadow trailing his newfound doubt. Lena, stepping into her building, feels a spark of hope for Noah, but a wariness for what lies ahead. The Hamptons estate waits, a battleground she's not sure she's ready to re-enter. You're not giving up on me, Miss Lena, right? The small voice of a girl, crutches wobbling, cuts through the clamor of the Brooklyn Community Center. Lena Brooks kneels, her hands steadying little Amara's trembling arms, her smile a beacon in the crowded room. Her chest tightens, Noah's tearful face flashing in her mind, but she pushes it down, her jaw set firm. Never, sweetheart, she says, her voice low, unwavering as she adjusts the girl's grip. You're tougher than you know. The center buzzes, kids laughing, a basketball thumping, volunteers shouting directions. But Lena's focus is razor sharp, her hands guiding Amara's first steps in weeks. Her heart pounds, not from exhaustion, but from the fire of purpose burning inside her. This is Lena's world, a cramped, fluorescent-lit gym where hope fights to breathe. She moves from child to child, her sneakers squeaking on the worn floor, her words sharp and encouraging. Chin up, Marcus. One more try. Her hands catch a boy's elbow as he stumbles, her strength a quiet anchor. The kids call her Miss Lena, their trust a weight she carries with pride. She's no stranger to struggle. Years as an unlicensed nurse, scraping by to support her ailing mother, taught her to bend but never break. James Carver's venom, opportunistic leech, stings, but here, among kids who see her as a hero, it loses its edge. Her fists clench briefly, nails biting into her palms, as she recalls Noah's desperate grip on her sleeve. She won't let him down, not like James did. A volunteer, Tanya, pulls Lena aside, her eyes soft with concern. You're pushing yourself hard, Lena. After what happened with that rich guy, you sure you're okay? Lena's lips press tight, her nod curt. I'm fine, she says, her voice clipped, but her eyes betray a flicker of pain. Tanya hesitates, then spills. I heard you used to be a nurse back in the day. Why'd you stop? Lena's breath catches, her fingers twitching. Life didn't give me a choice, she says, her tone final, shutting the door on her past. She turns back to the kids, her movements swift, deliberate, as she helps a boy adjust his leg brace. Her sacrifice, giving up her dream to care for her mother, fuels her resolve. Noah's face lingers, his small steps in the garden a memory she clings to, a promise she'll fight for. The center's noise fades as Lena steps outside for air, the Brooklyn dusk heavy with exhaust and possibility. A kid's laughter echoes from the gym, grounding her. She's not just a maid, not just the woman James scorned. She's the one who makes kids believe in themselves, who sees potential where others see limits. Her heart races, her resolve hardening like steel. I'm coming back for you, Noah, she whispers to the empty street, her voice a vow, sharp as a blade. James's half-hearted apology echoes, but it's not enough. Not yet. She needs him to see her, not as help, but as the woman who changed his son's life. As she locks the center's door, her phone buzzes. A text from an unknown number. You don't belong in his world. Her pulse spikes, her grip tightening on the keys. The message, unsigned but dripping with menace, feels like a shadow from the Hamptons, creeping into her sanctuary. Lena's eyes narrow, her breath steadying. She won't run. Not from James, not from whoever sent this. The fight for Noah, for her own dignity, is just beginning. You think one apology undoes your venom, Mr. Carver? Lena Brooks' voice slices through the cramped Brooklyn apartment, her eyes locked on James Carver, who stands rigid in her doorway. Her pulse hammers, her fists clench so tight her knuckles ache, as she faces the billionaire who branded her a leech. The faint hum of a neighbor's TV seeps through the thin walls, but the air between them crackles with tension. James's jaw twitches, his tailored coat out of place against the peeling paint, his usual swagger dimmed by the weight of his guilt. I'm not here to play games, he says, his voice low, strained. I saw what you did for Noah. I was wrong. Come back. Lena's lips press into a hard line, her breath sharp. Wrong? You called me nothing. You don't get to snap your fingers and expect me to bow. James steps forward, his hand raised as if to plead. But Lena cuts him off, her words a whip. Don't, she snaps. You humiliated me in front of your son. You think I'd trust you now? Her voice is steel, each syllable a defiance of his wealth, his power. Noah's tearful face burns in her mind, his small steps, his trust in her, and her heart lurches, but she won't bend easily. James's eyes flicker, shame etching lines across his face. I'm listening now, he says, his tone softer, almost breaking. Noah's been asking for you. He won't eat, won't sleep. He needs you, Lena. Her chest tightens, her nails digging into her palms as she wrestles with the pull of Noah's hope against the sting of James's scorn. She steps closer, her gaze unflinching. If I come back, it's for Noah, not you, she says, her voice a blade. And you don't get to control me. You join his therapy. You learn from me. No more judgments, no more orders. James nods, a sharp jerk of his head, his pride visibly bruised. Agreed, he says, his voice tight, but his eyes hold hers, searching, as if seeing her strength for the first time. Lena exhales, her shoulders still tense, her decision a weight she carries for Noah's sake. I'll be there tomorrow, she says, her tone final. But cross me again, and I'm gone for good. James's lips part, but no words come. He knows she means it. As James turns to leave, Lena moves to shut the door, her hand brushing against a small wooden box on the entry table, a keepsake from her mother. It tips, spilling its contents, old photos, a locket, and a folded note she doesn't recognize. She kneels, her pulse spiking as she unfolds it. The handwriting is sharp, unfamiliar. Evelyn's hiding something. Watch her. Lena's breath catches, her fingers tightening on the paper. Evelyn Carver, James's sister, flashed in her memory, her cold smile, her pointed glances at the estate. Who left this? How did it get here? Her mind races, the cryptic warning tied to the anonymous text from the community center. You don't belong in his world. Shadows are circling, and Lena feels their weight pressing closer. She slips the note into her pocket, her jaw set firm. James's SUV pulls away outside, its taillights fading into the Brooklyn night. Lena stands, her resolve hardening like iron. She's returning to the Hamptons, not just for Noah, but to face whatever Evelyn's hiding. The fight isn't over. It's barely begun. As she locks the door, her phone buzzes again, the screen glowing with another unknown number. She doesn't answer, but her grip tightens, her eyes narrowing. Someone's watching, and she'll be ready when they step into the light. You don't belong in this house, and you never will. Evelyn Carver's voice lashes out, sharp as a whip, as she corners Lena Brooks in the Hamptons estate's gleaming kitchen. Lena freezes, her hand gripping a tray of Noah's breakfast, her pulse hammering like a drum. Evelyn, James's sister, stands tall in her tailored blazer, her icy blue eyes slicing through Lena with undisguised contempt. The air crackles, the kitchen's sterile silence amplifying every word. You're a maid, not a miracle worker, Evelyn sneers, stepping closer, her heels clicking like gunfire on the marble floor. Think you can worm your way into my family's legacy with your little tricks? Lena's jaw locks, her teeth grinding, but she holds her ground, her knuckles whitening around the tray. Don't speak, Evelyn snaps, cutting Lena off before she can respond. I know your game. You saw a vulnerable boy, a rich family, and thought you'd play savior to climb the ladder. Her words are venom, each one aimed at Lena's race, her status, her very existence. Noah's wheelchair creaks in the next room, his small voice calling, Miss Lena? But Evelyn's glare pins her in place. You're not his mother. You're not even his nurse. You're nothing here. Lena's chest burns, her breath short as she fights the urge to lash back. She thinks of the note from her apartment. Evelyn's hiding something. Watch her. And her resolve hardens, her eyes narrowing to slits. I'm here for Noah, Lena says, her voice low, cutting like a blade. Not your approval. Evelyn's lips curl, a cruel smile flashing. Bold words for someone who's already out of her depth. My brother may be fooled, but I'm not. I run this family's image, and you're a stain on it. She leans in, her voice dropping to a hiss. Leave now, or I'll make sure you regret setting foot in this house. Lena's fists clench, her nails biting into her palms, but she doesn't flinch. Noah's voice calls again, softer, needier, and her heart lurches. She won't let this woman break her, not when Noah needs her. Evelyn turns, her heels snapping against the floor, but pauses at the doorway. You think you're helping him? She says, her tone dripping with disdain. You're a liability. I've already spoken to the board of our foundation. They agree. A maid has no place in Noah's care. The threat lands like a punch, and Lena's pulse spikes, her mind racing. Evelyn's not just posturing, she's moving pieces, orchestrating something bigger. The note's warning echoes, and Lena's eyes flick to the kitchen counter, where a stack of mail sits untouched. One envelope, marked with the Carver Foundation logo, feels heavier than the rest, a silent clue to Evelyn's game. As Evelyn sweeps out, her perfume lingering like a toxin, Lena sets the tray down, her hands trembling with suppressed fury. She glances toward Noah's room, his small figure barely visible through the doorway, and her resolve turns to steel. Evelyn's threat isn't just personal, it's a power play, and Lena's caught in the crosshairs. She slips the envelope into her pocket, her fingers brushing the note from Brooklyn. Something's wrong, and Evelyn's at the heart of it. The kitchen clock ticks, each second a countdown to a fight Lena didn't choose, but won't back down from. You're digging your own grave, poking into things that don't concern you. Evelyn Carver's voice hisses through the phone, her words sharp enough to cut glass. Lena Brooks grips her cell, her knuckles whitening as she stands in the shadowed corner of the Hamptons Estates library. Her pulse pounds like a war drum, Evelyn's threat from the kitchen still burning in her mind. She doesn't respond, letting the silence speak, but her jaw clenches so tight her teeth ache. The envelope from the Carver Foundation, tucked in her pocket, feels like a live wire against her hip. She'd found it on the kitchen counter after Evelyn's tirade. A single sheet inside, listing payments to a private investigator named Victor Hensley. The note from Brooklyn, Evelyn's hiding something, watch her, flashes in her head, and Lena knows this is no coincidence. She slips the envelope out, her fingers trembling with purpose, and scans the page again. Dates, amounts, and cryptic notes. Monitor LB's interactions with NC. Her initials, Noah's. Her breath catches, a cold fury rising in her chest. Evelyn's not just threatening her. She's spying, scheming, building a case to bury her. Lena's eyes narrow, her resolve hardening like iron. She won't let this woman tear her from Noah, not when he's finally stepping forward. She pockets the paper and moves to the library's computer, her hands steady despite the storm inside. A quick search on Victor Hensley pulls up a grainy photo, a man with a scar on his jaw, known for digging dirt on anyone for the right price. Lena's pulse spikes. Evelyn's playing dirty, and she's got the money to make it stick. Footsteps echo, and Lena spins, her heart lurching. It's James, his face taut, his tie loosened like he's been pacing. "What are you doing?" he demands, his voice low but sharp. Lena doesn't flinch, her gaze locking onto his. "Your sister's trying to ruin me," she says, her words ablade. "She hired someone to watch me, to watch Noah." She thrusts the payment list at him, her hands steady, daring him to dismiss her. James snatches it, his eyes scanning the page, his jaw tightening with every line. "This can't be right," he mutters, but his voice cracks, betraying doubt. "Evelyn's ruthless. But this?" Lena steps closer, her voice cutting through his hesitation. "She called me a stain, said I don't belong. This is her move to make sure I'm gone." James's fingers grip the paper, his knuckles white. "Why would she do this?" he snaps. But Lena cuts him off, her words relentless. "Because Noah's progress threatens her. She controls your family's image, your foundation. If he walks, she loses her grip." Her accusation lands like a punch, and James's eyes flicker, a mix of anger and shame. He thinks of Noah's steps in the garden, Lena's steady hands, and the note he found. "Check her past before you regret it." His stomach twists. Was that Evelyn too? He slams the paper down, his breath sharp. "We need more proof," he says, his voice steel. "If she's doing this, we'll find it." They move to Noah's room, where the boy sleeps, his small chest rising and falling. Lena's heart aches, but she pushes it down, her focus razor sharp. She remembers the wooden box from her apartment, the note about Evelyn. "There's more," she says, her voice low. "Someone warned me about her, left a note in my things." James's eyes narrow. "Who?" Lena shakes her head, her lips tight. "I don't know, but it's someone close, someone who knows her secrets." They start searching, methodical, desperate. Lena checks Noah's desk, her fingers brushing a stack of drawings. One slips free, a crude sketch of a woman with Evelyn's sharp features standing over a crying boy. Noah's work. Lena's breath catches, her hands trembling. "He saw something," she whispers, showing James. His face hardens, his fists clenching. "She's been in his head." They dig deeper, finding an old tablet under Noah's bed, password protected but carelessly left unlocked. James swipes it open, his hands shaking, and pulls up deleted emails. One from Evelyn to Hensley reads, "Get something we can use, make it quick." Another, more damning, "If she stays, the foundation's reputation is at risk." Lena's blood boils, her nails digging into her palms. "She's not just after me," she says, her voice a low growl. "She's using Noah to keep control." James's eyes blaze, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "She's done." But Lena's not convinced. She thinks of the text from the community center. "You don't belong in his world." And the note in her apartment. Someone else is watching, feeding her clues. But why? She glances at Noah, sleeping soundly, and her resolve turns to steel. "We need to be careful," she says, her voice cutting through the silence. "Evelyn's not working alone." James nods, his jaw set, but his eyes betray a flicker of fear. He's in too deep now, and there's no turning back. As they leave Noah's room, Lena's phone buzzes again. An unknown number, a single message. "Look in the foundation's files. Tonight." Her grip tightens, her pulse racing. The library door creaks shut behind them, the estate's silence heavy with secrets waiting to break free. "You hid this from me, my son." James Carver's voice cracks like a gunshot, his fist slamming the desk in the Hamptons estate study. Lena Brooks stands beside him, her pulse racing, her jaw clenched so tight her teeth grind. The tablet from Noah's room glows on the desk, its screen displaying an email chain that burns through James's composure. Evelyn's words to the private investigator, Victor Hensley, are damning. "Delay Noah's treatment. The foundation's control depends on his condition." Lena's breath catches, her hands trembling with fury as the truth hits like a blade. Evelyn sabotaged Noah's recovery to keep her grip on the Carver family fortune. Her nails dig into her palms, the pain grounding her as she fights to stay focused. James scrolls, his eyes blazing, each email a new wound. "She wanted him weak," he growls, his voice low, dangerous. "My sister, his aunt, used my boy as a pawn." Lena's heart lurches, Noah's small, trusting face flashing in her mind. She thinks of his steps in the garden, her steady hands guiding him, and the rage boils over. "She didn't just target me," Lena says, her voice sharp, cutting. "She betrayed Noah to protect her power." James's head snaps up, his gaze locking onto hers, a storm of guilt and fury in his eyes. "I trusted her," he says, his words jagged. "I let her near him." Lena steps closer, her voice a steel blade. "We have proof now. She can't hide this." The tablet holds more than emails. A deleted audio file, recovered from the device, captures Evelyn's cold voice berating a doctor. "If Noah walks, we lose leverage. Keep him dependent." The recording, Noah's innocent attempt to save a memory, is a gut punch. Lena's chest tightens, her breath short, as she imagines Noah hearing those words, his small world crumbling. "He recorded this," she whispers, her voice breaking. "He knew she was wrong." James's fists clench, his knuckles white. "She's done," he says, his tone final, but his hands shake, betraying the weight of the betrayal. The anonymous text from the library. "Look in the foundation's files. Tonight." Echoes in Lena's mind. Whoever sent it knew this truth, wanted it found. Her eyes narrow, her mind racing. "Someone's helping us," she says, her voice low. "The note in my apartment. The text. They're leading us to her." James nods, his jaw set, but his eyes flicker with unease. "Who?" he demands. Lena shakes her head, her lips tight. "Someone close. Someone who's seen her lies." The mystery of the informant lingers, a shadow in the room, but the evidence on the tablet is undeniable. Evelyn's scheme to keep Noah immobile, to control the family's wealth through the foundation, is laid bare. Lena's resolve hardens, her fingers brushing the tablet as if it holds Noah's future. "We take this to the police," she says, her voice unwavering. James hesitates, his pride warring with the truth. "This will destroy her," he says, almost to himself. Lena's gaze doesn't waver. "She destroyed herself. We're protecting Noah." His nod is sharp, a decision made. As they gather the evidence, Lena's phone buzzes. A new message from the unknown number. She knows you're close. Be ready. Her pulse spikes, her grip tightening. Evelyn's watching, and the fight is about to get uglier. The study door creaks, Noah's wheelchair faintly audible in the hall. Lena's heart skips, her eyes meeting James's. The truth is out, but the battle isn't over. Evelyn's shadow looms, and someone, friend or foe, is pulling strings in the dark. You're a fool if you think you can ruin me. Evelyn Carver's voice slices through the crowded ballroom of the Manhattan Gala, her icy glare pinning Lena Brooks against a velvet-draped wall. Lena's pulse hammers, her fists clenched so tight her nails carve half-moons into her palms. The air crackles with tension, the hum of polite chatter fading as Evelyn steps closer, her silver gown glinting like a blade. "You're nothing but a maid who got lucky," she hisses, her words dripping venom, each one a jab at Lena's race, her place. "Keep pushing, and you'll regret ever crossing me." Lena's jaw locks, her teeth grinding, but she stands tall, her eyes blazing defiance. Noah's small hand trembling as he took his steps fuels her resolve. She won't let this woman break her. "Don't," Lena snaps, her voice a low growl, cutting Evelyn off before she can spit more poison. "I know what you did to Noah, kept him weak to control the foundation." Evelyn's smile falters, her eyes narrowing to slits, but she recovers fast, leaning in, her breath hot with menace. "You have no proof," she sneers. "You're a nobody, and nobody will believe you." Lena's heart pounds, the tablet's damning emails and Noah's recorded audio burning in her memory. She opens her mouth, but Evelyn cuts her off, her voice a whip. "Save your breath, step out of line, and I'll make sure you're scrubbing floors for the rest of your life." The threat lands like a punch, and Lena's chest tightens, her breath short. The gala's crowd shifts, eyes darting toward them, sensing the showdown. Lena's mind races. The anonymous text, "She knows you're close. Be ready," echoes, a warning she can't ignore. She steps forward, her voice steel. "You hurt Noah to keep your power. That's the truth, and it's coming out." Evelyn's laugh is sharp, jagged, but her hand twitches, betraying a crack in her composure. "You're delusional," she says, her tone icy. "Push me, and you'll lose more than your job." Before Lena can fire back, a shadow moves at the ballroom's edge. A man, tall, with a scar on his jaw. Victor Hensley, Evelyn's hired investigator. Lena's pulse spikes, her instincts screaming danger. Hensley weaves through the crowd, his hand slipping into his jacket. Lena's eyes lock onto his, her body tensing like a coiled spring. She sidesteps toward the exit, her heart racing, but Hensley closes in, his stride deliberate. "Miss Brooks," he says, his voice low, menacing as he blocks her path. "You should have stayed in Brooklyn." Lena's breath catches, her fist balling tighter. She glances at Noah across the room in his wheelchair, his wide eyes fixed on her. She can't let him see her falter. "Back off," she says, her voice a blade. But Hensley grabs her arm, his grip iron, pulling her toward a side door. The crowd's murmur drowns her protest, and panic claws at her chest. Lena twists, her elbow slamming into Hensley's ribs, breaking free. She stumbles, her heels skidding on the polished floor, and bolts toward Noah. "Lena!" the boy cries, his voice cutting through the chaos. Evelyn's face twists, her smile gone, as she signals Hensley. He lunges again, but James Carver surges through the crowd, his eyes blazing. "Get away from her!" he roars, shoving Hensley back, his fist raised. The investigator hesitates, his scar catching the light, then retreats into the crowd, vanishing like a ghost. Lena's breath comes in gasps, her hands trembling, but she kneels beside Noah, her touch steadying him. "I'm here," she whispers, her voice firm despite the fear. James's gaze locks onto Lena, his jaw set, fury and guilt warring in his eyes. "You're okay?" he asks, his voice low, urgent. She nods, her heart still racing, but her resolve is iron. "Evelyn's desperate," she says, her words sharp. "She sent him." James's fists clench, his knuckles white. "This ends now," he growls, but Lena's eyes flick to the ballroom's exit, where a flash of silver, Evelyn's gown, disappears. The danger's not over. A folded note slips from Lena's pocket, dropped in the scuffle, its edge marked with a single word: tonight. Her pulse spikes again, her grip tightening on Noah's hand. Evelyn's game is unraveling, but she's not done fighting. You can't run from this, Evelyn. James Carver's voice thunders through the Hamptons estate's study, his fist slamming a stack of papers onto the desk. Lena Brooks stands beside him, her pulse pounding like a freight train, her jaw clenched tight enough to ache. Her arm still throbs from Victor Hensley's grip at the gala, but her eyes are steel, locked on the tablet glowing with Evelyn's damning emails. The note she found in the scuffle, tonight, burns in her pocket, a warning that time's running out. Noah's small, trusting face fuels her resolve, his steps in the garden a fire she won't let Evelyn snuff out. We've got her, Lena says, her voice a blade, sharp and unyielding. But we need more to nail her for good. James's eyes blaze, his knuckles white as he grips the tablet. She used my son, he growls, his words jagged with betrayal. Kept him weak to control the foundation. I'll bury her. Lena nods, her breath short, but her focus is razor sharp. The gala's chaos, Hensley's attack, Evelyn's vanishing act, still pulses in her veins, but she pushes it down, her hands steady as she pulls the note from her pocket. Someone's helping us, she says, her voice low, urgent. This came from the ballroom, same handwriting as the one in Brooklyn. James snatches it, his brow furrowing. Who's feeding us this? He demands, but Lena shakes her head, her lips tight. Someone who wants her stopped. We need to follow it. They move fast, adrenaline driving them. Lena's fingers fly over the tablet, digging deeper into the deleted files. She finds a hidden folder, password protected, but Noah's birthday, year 808, cracks it open. Her heart lurches as a video loads. Noah, alone in his room, his small voice trembling as he records Evelyn berating a doctor. No new treatments, Evelyn snaps on the screen, her voice cold as ice. If he walks, we lose everything. Lena's blood boils, her nails digging into her palms, the pain grounding her fury. She planned this, she says, her voice a low growl. Every step of it. James's face hardens, his fist clenching. She's finished, but Lena's not done. The note's single word, tonight, nags at her, a clue pointing to the Carver Foundation server. She grabs her phone, dialing Diane, the journalist who's been sniffing around Evelyn's dealings. I need you, Lena says, her voice clipped. We've got evidence, but it's not enough. Can you access Foundation records? Diane's voice crackles through, sharp and eager. Give me an hour. I know a guy who can crack their system. Lena's pulse spikes, her eyes meeting James's. Do it, he says, his tone steel. I want her exposed. They split up. James heads to the Foundation's office in Manhattan, his SUV tearing through the night, while Lena stays with Noah, her heart heavy but her resolve iron. She tucks him into bed, his small hand gripping hers. You won't leave, right? He whispers, his eyes wide. Lena's throat tightens, but she forces a smile, her voice firm. Never, Noah. As he drifts off, she searches his room, her instincts screaming, there's more to find. Under his pillow, she uncovers a tiny notebook, Noah's messy scrawl inside. Aunt Evelyn said I'd never walk. Miss Lena says I can. Her chest aches, her fingers trembling as she slips it into her pocket. Noah's faith in her is a weapon she'll wield. Diane calls, her voice tense. Got something. Financial records from the Foundation. Offshore accounts linked to Evelyn. She's been siphoning funds, using Noah's condition as a sob story to rake in donations. Lena's breath catches, her fury flaring. Send it to me, she says, her voice a blade. Minutes later, her phone pings with files. Bank transfers, fake invoices, all tied to Evelyn's name. Lena forwards them to James, her hands shaking with purpose. He texts back, I'm at the office. Found a locked drive. Hacking it now. Her pulse races, the pieces falling into place. But danger's closing in. Lena's phone buzzes, an unknown number, a new message. You're too late. She's already won. Her blood runs cold, her grip tightening. She glances at Noah, sleeping soundly, and her resolve turns to steel. She dials James, her voice urgent. They know we're close. Watch your back. His response is curt. I'm fine. Got the drive open. It's a gold mine. Letters, contracts, proof she paid to sabotage Noah's therapy. Lena's heart pounds, her eyes narrowing. Get it to Diane, now. She hangs up, her breath shallow as footsteps echo outside Noah's room. Too heavy, too deliberate to be staff. Lena slips to the door, her body tense, her hand gripping a heavy bookend. The handle rattles and her pulse spikes. Whoever's out there, they're not here for tea. Evelyn's game is unraveling, but she's not going down without a fight.